Good viewer, you are watching Exert Us. This is because Exert Us makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Exert Us for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Exert Us, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Exert Us. Your friends will come to like Exert Us, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Exert Us. See, that was easy.
Hello. Welcome to the Exert Us.
Wow. So we're alive, and that's a nice beginning to the week. No one's been fully burnt out yet. How are you guys doing?
Pretty burnt out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And today
a little
crispy.
crispy.
To be Friday.
Life is beautiful. How about that? I'm gonna pull up a ground article because I don't know what else to do for like neutrality, but if you go through ground, there's basically just what's going on. Anything? No, that's not good. Let's do Infowars. How about that?
Still keeping it nice and
nope.
evenly balanced. Well, that's crazy that
wait a minute.
Viva,
hold on.
Viva with flies on the front of Infowars. That's nuts.
Yeah,
what is the brain force? Is that an actual what is that an amphetamine? Is that
Probably.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Thomas. I'm just that before it disappeared, I was like, that thing. What is that? Is that an amphetamine?
Oh, it just took us to the brain. We're probably gonna get in trouble just for investigating what this is in. But
what is it? Is it an amphetamine? Is it like a legal amphetamine?
Is that what it is? I don't think so.
I know one was, and I'm wondering if it's the same stuff because I looked that up at one point. This is years ago though, and I'm like, are they still selling that? Can they still do that?
Oh man, if they were selling bath salts, I feel like people would know. Like that'd be a thing. Pretty sure like it has like beet powder in it and maca. Like they got some doctor who got them like all this like healthy stuff. I mean, really like selling supplements. That's like not the most evil thing.
Oh no, I don't have an issue, even if it's an illegal amphetamine. I'm interested to know what it is that the Infowars crowd is taking,
More info. Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't tell you. That's also pretty weird, right? Like, shouldn't it tell you like
isn't that it though? The real red pill plus. Like that's the real red pill plus.
Oh, yeah. Is that the real red pill? Okay, yeah. So the real red pill plus has beets in it, right? Like that's what's in there, I'm pretty sure. Beets, vitamin K, niacin,
zinc,
magnesium, copper. Yeah, beetroot. There it is. Beetroot. That's where the red pill comes from. I remember this because I remember the doctor who was working on that and he was using beets. And I remember I knew my dad hated beets, and I know some people that really hate beets because beets were soaked in like DDT and everything, when they were growing all these vegetables in the 50s. A lot of them were really they used pretty horrible pesticides, and the root vegetables particularly would absorb a lot of this horrible petroleum based pesticides, and little kids and old people particularly hated eating things like beets and potatoes and anything that soaked that up. But yeah,
no, this is good. This stuff looks pretty good for the most part.
Yeah.
But this was years ago. I looked up the medication that they were selling, and I saw that it was literally a methamphetamine. It was, and I was like, or at least an amphetamine. I don't know.
Probably like cathinone. Probably like a cathinone.
Do they have any insufflation products by any chance?
I mean, that's up to you, right? Like that's like more of a social.
What would happen if you did that with like a beetroot powder? It seems like you might freak yourself out pretty quickly.
No, because the starches wouldn't be really practical. So like really the only time you would do something like that is if it was like a completely like salt, like if you got a chemically extracted to a salt chemical, like if you have, but otherwise you probably wouldn't want to do that. I guess you could.
I'm gonna wait another minute because I see we're only at 6 in, and I know that you're only allowed to ask real questions after 7 minutes.
Oh, okay, well, okay. Then I'll just I'm juggling here. For a second. I think that with tobacco, right? Because like rapé in the Native American tribes, where they like breathe it into your nose, right? Mm-hmm. They shoot tobacco in your nose, but it's a powdered tobacco that has been it's been like turned with a kind of alkali. It's been alkalized, so they've taken the leaves and smashed it, and they've alkalized it, and so it's not a salt, but as an alkali, like it can be absorbed. Most of the stuff that's in it, that leaf powder is going. Yeah, there you go. There's the thing.
He's about to do some right now.
Here, I'll give you some. Here, you take this, and then
okay, there.
Yeah, but so when they cross, you absorb it, and then you still have to blow out all this gunk, right? So then there's people like they get this like tobacco gunk, but it's released a lot of the like broken down chemical that's been alkalized. So,
what do you feel about tobacco?
What do I feel about tobacco? I think it's really it's very interesting. It's very interesting.
There's dimethyltryptamine. There's like different percentages.
Travis is so based.
Yes, nice. So it
like we should do that a whole different way. Hold on. Loud enough? Not really. So there you go. Whatever. Travis, you're cool. I'm sorry, my music wasn't cool enough for you. Keep going.
No, you'd have different percentages of tobacco to the what is it? It's some form of It's the one of the plants that goes into ayahuasca is included in some of the hape.
Yeah.
So I've had one version a lot and one other version a little.
And to clarify what he's saying, like when you take ayahuasca, a lot of time you need to have a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, which is MAOI, and so tobacco is a amazing source of MAOI, which is not just for that; it can be used for a lot of things. But yeah,
right. So you have different ratios in the hape, and so one time I had it where they explained that it had more of the effects of dimethyltryptamine, and it was unmistakable. Usually, it's just like you can feel it in your brain, and depending on which nostril you blow it into, you're going to feel it more on that side, depending, and then you balance it out or whatever. But I've had it where I've had full-on visuals out of it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Different ratio of what was included, which is a smaller amount of tobacco then,
And you're saying from just the tobacco you had visuals?
Well, the tobacco also has been blessed and all this stuff, so it depends how you look at it.
Well, there's different plants that they include, and it can be more than a couple too. It depends. So it's just powder of ground up stuff,
Okay.
Fun
fact.
Fun fact. All right. So when I lived in Peru, and like there was lots of different kinds of tobaccos, and I have always been kind of like not super stoked about tobacco, probably because my dad's never smoked in his life and was always against it because he grew up in like, if I do those things, I'll go to die with the hippies. I got to be real careful and be super square, But also just the Mormons. And the Mormons are not into smoking. But if you read their thing, and I remember reading their thing about tobacco, like what did they say about it back when I was like a small kid? It was like tobacco is to only be used on wounds, or like, it's like, I'm like, what does that mean? It's like, well, it's supposed to be absorbed through the skin. I'm like, wait, what? Like what do you mean by that? And so as you look into it, like, what is the most common depiction of tobacco use outside of the peace pipe circular ritual. It's like insufflation. It's insufflation. It's people that are they're inhaling tobacco, but not as a smoke. And so there's a lot of different quality. Like if you look into the differences between burning a plant, like if you burn sage versus whether you dry sage in your home, the Wiccans and things, they have different understandings of what that does. Burning the sage clears out energy, leaving drying sage in is more inclusive to energy, brings more weird energies in. So it does the exact opposite, right? So there's a difference between burning it and then insufflating it.
I recently saw a movie where they were burning sage while there was a Ouija board session going on. What was that?
Was that the one with the little hand or no?
No, that's another good one. I can't remember what this one was, but I was just wondering, it seems like wouldn't the sage scare the ghosts away, or does it just keep the bad ones away?
That's interesting. For Native Americans, isn't it believed that it's protection in the spirit realm, right? It's tobacco.
Certain kinds of oils can be used as in a vaporous form to protect things.
I think that was in that film Dead Man with Johnny Depp, where the guy keeps asking, "Do you have any tobacco?" Apparently, that was kind of like a subliminal reference to that he is technically already dead, and this is protection in the spirit.
Do you think a jewel would count? Would a jewel give you the same protection in the spirit realm?
No, vapor's different, I think, than smoke. They're different kinds of things. But the 12th century to but Dark Age into whatever period idea of smoke was that it protected you from certain kinds of spirits. So they were constantly keeping themselves surrounded in smoke, as you'd see in the Renaissance fair, right? You'll see those guys walking around and they have incense and everything. So they would burn frankincense or they would burn tobacco when they got tobacco, because the Turks had tobacco. And at that time, Christianity was in Turkey. It was Colossians was written in Turkey, right? Where Anatolia is now. So a lot of the culture around tobacco, I think, also became and coffee became like a division with the loss of the Anatolia.
Also, in ayahuasca ceremony, it's common for the shaman to blow tobacco into the cup before he serves it, because tobacco is considered the masculine counterpart to ayahuasca, which is feminine. It's kind of can be an angry feminine, but it's still feminine, whatever the case.
In Bosnia, they'll have a coffee with a cigarette. If you buy a coffee, it comes with a cigarette.
But do they relate that it's man and woman? Because it seems like coffee would also be kind of Mars energy, but it's like Mars and Mars, but it's a whole lot of Mars, but whatever.
I don't know. Is coffee Mars? I mean,
I don't know. It depends on who you talk to.
How many women have you met that are like coffee? I feel like a lot of women are like coffee.
I don't know.
Are we talking like a pumpkin spice latte?
No. I was going for the entire 80s revolution, the suits, the women in suits with the shoulder pads, the coffee. It just felt like extreme feminine energy.
Crowley's Book of Correspondences 777. I believe that he says cocaine is resonant with Mars, and I'm not sure, but I think he may have included tobacco in that as well. I'd have to check. But my bookshelf's in the other room, so.
Harmine.
Say it again?
Doesn't tobacco have harmine? Isn't that one of the psychoactive elements? I might be just making that up.
Beta carboline. I don't know if it's in tobacco. See. Yep.
Yeah, tobacco. So this is the MAOI and inhibitor would be redundant, but this is the MAOI that you were saying, helps with the ayahuasca, right?
Interesting. Cool. Yeah. So that's interesting with ayahuasca, that it requires another plant essentially, because without an MAOI, it doesn't really work. And the closest MAOI they have to ayahuasca, it could have been that there was one closer thousands of years ago that went extinct, but it's likely that they just literally were in communication with somebody else 1,000 miles away or something, where they were growing the MAOI. So for there to be a network and a communication route, and the only thing that seems to be in common share with these in the commons with them is ayahuasca.
Right.
It's pretty interesting because it means their culture might be around that.
So they say that the plant told them. The plants told them what went together. So it's because there's so many plants in the jungle,
Yeah.
Like, how did they make that connection? And they're like, the plants will, but I think in low likelihood, it was probably the jaguars, because the jaguars would take it and purge, right? So they knew the effects of it from watching the animals instinctively using it. Or maybe we were just more in touch with our instincts then, and, you know, at a different time. I don't really know, but I like the idea of like Bill Klaus's blog is called Ayahuasca, like iPhone or like iPad or whatever. And his idea was like, Amazon is like on the internet, but you could like take two things from Amazon and put them together in a way that like it's like it's like you could buy two things from Amazon and they combine in this really interesting way. So it's like, I don't know.
I feel like you guys might be biased, but I want to get your opinions anyways. And I don't mean to in a bad way, but I just feel like like the deck might be stacked, especially for David if you've had like actual ayahuasca experiences with the whole shaman thing. So specifically, what do you think is the difference between having a shaman blow tobacco up your snout before you drink it and throw up and do the whole thing, versus your buddy goes to Pinch a Penny pool store and raises the pH and lowers it a few times on some like mimosa bark, and then you do it that way? Like, obviously the setting aspect, but do you think like spiritually, or like even like the potential, like do you think that like doing it in your garage with the pool chemical version like has nowhere near the potential as
point of order? Like, I've known Ian Crossland for like decades now, right? And Ian Crossland's a really cool guy, right? But when we went to the Amazon and I got a guy to blow like rapé into Ian's like face, I think Ian became like way cooler than ever before. All right, keep going, David.
I don't know, setting. I don't know if you know my story. I could try and give you the short version, but basically, I took ayahuasca about 8 times. The 8th time that I took it, my intestine twisted below my stomach, and like I had ulcers when I was young, so I had like 15 stomach ulcers when I was like 10. So it changed the elasticity of my intestine, as was explained to me by the doctor at Dominican Hospital here. And basically, like I purged for about 20 hours straight, and then I spent 5 days in the hospital where they debated on cutting me open or not. And so I had like a serious near-death experience. The head doctor at the hospital told me I was within an hour of my life, and it's actually what is the substance that saved my life? Actually, the one everyone freaks out about. Like a type of opioid. Fentanyl.
Yeah.
Fentanyl. So fentanyl saved my life, actually, because I was able to relax my stomach. But that's still, even after they put me on an IV with fentanyl, it still wasn't done.
So
if
this was just a DMT vape, would you still have had that experience, or was this just because
it was the substance is a purgative, and it was just a bad, a bunch of different factors apparently all played in at once, and it would not have happened if the elasticity of my intestine wasn't affected from scar tissue from years prior ulcers. So yeah.
Also, David eats pretty healthy. David eats relatively like healthier than most of anyone else. Like anytime I've eaten with him,
at least when I was preparing for ayahuasca, certainly.
Well, you're pretty much a vegetarian. You eat a lot of mushrooms.
Not anymore. The old.
He's still
me.
here.
I was like a vegan raw foodist.
Yeah,
we were friends long
We were
ago.
vegan raw foodists for a while. I started being vegan raw foodists after David because we went and got a burrito one time, and mine was filled with pork, and his was filled with like vegetables. And I was like, I'm missing out, I think. And I don't know, but I'm not anymore. And neither are you. We eat lots of meat, so
yeah.
He was thinking the same thing, yeah.
My word. And Anthony Castro 007, but you're on your way, has become a YouTube member, and that's super based and very stunning of you. I'm proud of you.
What a Chad,
dude. Super Chad right there. Yeah. Ayahuasca, I remember one time I was in what was the first time I did ayahuasca? So the first time I was at UCSC, and I met Maitland, our buddy, and he had every assortment because he had been living at family student housing. So he'd worked at, and I want him to someday come tell the story, but he's like constantly living alone in his whatever Prius, or I think the Cougar is the name of his favorite car. The Mercury Cougar is what he likes to have. But he started out in like the 90s, when we were doing Usenet forum stuff, he was able to get access to research chemicals. And so the research chemicals at the time were all legal. You know, there was no law against taking a lot of these different chemicals. And there's a lot of really interesting things that existed. So alpha phenylphenamine and, you know, there's different kinds of alpha methyltryptamine. And so these are like phenylphenamines are, you know, all of related to Adderall, you know, these different kinds of like chemicals that are stimulants. But some of those stimulants have serotonin agonists. So you could have like 2-5 dimethoxy 4 chlorine phenylphenamine. And so it's a chlorine envelope, right? So chlorine takes a long time to break down, or it could be an iodine or a bromine or whatever. And then in that you have this 2-5 dimethoxy. So it's serotonin on both sides, right? And that was like the Navy equivalent to LSD. That was what Alexander Shulgin was first building, and he built a bunch of 2-5s. And then there's the 2Cs and everything else.
Yeah, the 2CB took over for the longest time.
I would argue the 2-5s are better, but you should be very careful with anything that is like that. I mean, the thing is, Alexander Shulgin only ever did these things like 3 times. He would do them with his wife, small dose, heroic dose, middle dose maybe, and then he would write about it, and then he'd make a new chemical. And he got away with this because he saved so many lives. You know, like the DEA had a guy who was in a church during an earthquake in Texas as a child and blocked it out. But then he'd done some maps. Soros, you know, George Soros financed MAPS in Santa Cruz. And so MAPS is like the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies or something like that, I think. And they gave ecstasy, essentially, MDMA and MDA, different versions, to soldiers. And that was the beginning of those studies. I mean, they had in the 80s, you know, studies like that, but they started doing them again in the early 2000s and then the early 2010s in Santa Cruz. And so this guy, though, from the 80s on, he recognized that, wow, when I was a boy, there was this earthquake and the church fell in, and the pews, you know, like the guy in front of me, the church fell in the pews and his head got cut off and it rolled into this boy's lap. And so he'd blocked it out and became a DEA agent years later. But like, because of this, he had a real love for Shulgin. And so he let him go on doing his thing. And so for years, you know, he would just write these books. I've got like 4 of them. You know, the phenylphenamines I've known and love is like this thick. And it's all of the things he made with it. And also tryptamines I've known and love. Pickle and Tickle.
Those are the titles of the books? I don't know those books. That's great.
Tickle, Tikhal. You haven't seen that one? Hold on. It might be that the way I pronounce it.
I remember getting one of those books in like the early 2000s and then quickly realizing it was way over my head.
Yeah.
Tickle. So pickle or tickle. Tickle or pickle. That's how you that's how I remember it. But tickle's the good one. Phenylphenamines is important. But again, I think you should know these things without necessarily wanting to go do these things. Is just know that this happened because this is the entire other movement. Like, you know about the pharmaceutical movement, you know what they did, you know about SSRIs, antipsychotics. This is the thing that was fighting against that the pharmaceutical companies won fighting, right? Because tryptamines were essentially in the early 2000s, they started making laws about all of these things, and they started to schedule all of these things that they couldn't have pharmaceutical copyrights on, right? Because these are essentially what they really come down to is generics, because all these chemicals can be made by anybody, so there's no incentive for the companies. And on top of that, these are designed within a different purpose because they're supposed to change you and not need you to take them again and again. It's a one-time use thing, so it's not antithetical to the pharmaceutical market.
Totally. Similar to ibogaine or ibogaine, how do you say it?
Ibogaine, either way you want to say it.
I mean, in terms of that, it's such a profound thing. You don't have to revisit this again. It's not like mushrooms or something. Where
you can, right? Like you can revisit.
Not that you can. I know plenty of people do. I'm just saying, like, theoretically, it's such a defragging of your system. I just want to respond really quickly, just looking at comments here, to just make a point of what happened to me. Like, I did the dietary thing every time I did it. I did everything according to how it's supposed to be done. It was something very particular in my system. So the point is, I do recommend ayahuasca use to just about everybody. What happened to me statistically is actually 1 in 10,000 people. And so I'm not like, I won't never badmouth ayahuasca. That was just a personal experience I had after 8 times, but it wasn't.
But
it wasn't
don't try it
matter of,
ever,
you know.
because it's a podcast on YouTube. So
Is it illegal? Is it illegal? I'm sorry,
I don't know.
Is it?
If it is, then don't do it. Don't do anything illegal. Folks.
Yeah, don't do anything illegal. If it's legal, go right. I'm sorry, excuse me. Yeah, never mind.
Right, exactly. I'm with
Peru,
that.
it's legal.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you do things like safely and legally. That's, I think, going to be the rules of our church. So Ken Kesey here, he said, if you get the message, then hang up the phone, right? So, and when I was a teenager and I heard that going into this world, I was like, that seems kind of weak. And now I'm like, oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And he ended up making Annie's organics, right? So if you're ever buying like microwavable organic macaroni and cheese,
no, that's MK Ultra now.
That's MK Ultra mac and cheese.
Is that like if you see Buddha on the road, you're supposed to kill him? Is that kind of the same idea?
Yeah, but I think with this situation, it's like if you see Ken Kesey on the road, you kick him in the nuts and you take his top hat, something like that. I mean, that's cool. He's got a top hat like Abraham Lincoln and Joseph Smith. I mean, like, let's be real. Top hats seem to be something about top hats. You guys have any thoughts on top hats? Because I think I'm gonna get one. I have like a cool witch hat kind of thing. It's like a pilgrim hat, but this top hat vibe, you could keep a rabbit in there. What do you think? What do you think about top hats?
I'm against top hats. I think that Abe Lincoln, kind of like when you retire a number from a jersey, I feel like Abe Lincoln retired the top hat.
He did. He ruined it. Abraham Lincoln ruined the top hat. He was such a chump. Ugh, I hate that guy.
He had to take it off when he walked into doors, right? Or the doors were higher then, I guess.
Dude, yeah,
he was tall to begin with.
I think he didn't wear it that often. I think he wore it literally only for like 6 pictures because.
But he owned it. He absolutely owned it.
Yeah, but like you remember, right? Like Abraham Lincoln stole the top hat look, like from Joseph Smith, because Joseph Smith, after they were killing them in, Missouri, they're looking for a state to go. They meet this young guy, Abraham Lincoln, who says, "Yeah, you can come in here." And he's so popular, the guy he brings in, like, it brings all this money into Illinois. So, like, Abraham Lincoln at very first, for 8 years earlier, he's this young guy associated with making the Mormon problem. That's like what they associated with. And, what he does is he usurps Joseph Smith's idea of, being an abolitionist, because Joseph Smith ran as an abolitionist 8 years earlier. I was like 15 years earlier, even. Joseph Smith, abolitionist. When did he run? President. 1844. 1844. So was it 60? Wait, 1860? When is the election of what's the next election? I don't know. Point is, Abraham Lincoln was doing exactly what Joseph Smith did in the previous election, which is pretty lame. Hey, look, Lisby. What's up, Lisby? How you doing? You became a member. Congratulations. That's pretty sweet. Okay, so what about you, Thomas? What have you been up to?
It's just funny how we end up steering back towards Mormonism constantly.
I can't help myself. I'm a bad person.
You've been just nonstop posting these like outstanding Mormon AI, but then you also mentioned something like, there's an animation or a cartoon or whatever. Like, help me pitch it. What's the pitch, dude?
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, really quickly, also, Brittany, thank you for the super chat. Top hats caused mercury poisoning and made people literally go mad. Well, if you think mercury is bad or going insane is bad, then all right, then don't do that, I guess. All right. So, okay, where did I put that picture? Let me see if I can find it, because I did make that picture. Did I send it into the Synctank chat?
Because I want to take it seriously. I want to take it serious as if there's really a pilot behind this that could be pitched somewhere.
Okay, let me talk about my idea for Davey and the Book of Mormon. Okay, this is like, I'm thinking that this could be an Adult Swim. Like, should probably pick this up. It's going to be pretty big, and it's really there's a couple versions of it. Let me get the other picture, because that one's pretty cute. But Davey. How are we gonna get out of this one, Davey? How are we gonna get out of this one, Davey? Like, and so the Book of Mormon also, it'd be like magical, because whenever he opens it up, like, it says anything, like, it can do anything, it can say anything it needs to say. It has all the answers all the time. And he's this little boy who's got to, like, in the world, there's also people that are saying, like, he's weird, and everyone's like, Davey's not weird, he's a Mormon. And so it's just constantly like, he's weird because he's perfect. and the whole way through. But then also when he meets the Book of Mormon, it's like this magical experience because the Book of Mormon is like Gumby. And so they go off on adventures and they have to constantly go like deal with these people that are super evil looking and sinful, but then they turn out to be nice guys. Like these biker guys, they all miss their mom or something like that. And like they singing songs about that. That's kind of like what I was thinking so far. I don't know, Thomas, what do you think? What would you do with this?
I usually start with some pretty simple questions. Like I want to know what Davey's biggest flaw is and what ultimately he's going to resolve at the end of his first story arc, because that's what drives all the other encounters and everything else around him. So he's got to have something missing, and
his manhood. It's like he's becoming a man. It's kind of the Morty to Rick, ascension. Like he has to become manly.
and how does he actually become manly?
Saving women and children,
But I don't think it automatically happens, right? It's not like once you get to 10.
No, yeah.
So you hit a certain checkpoint.
I think it's like he has 13 episodes, and every time he accumulates an idol or a trophy. Like there's 13 items, and each one of those is from saving a group of people in a creative, Solomonic, wise way. So it's where they're gonna tear the baby in half, and like they don't because of Davey. And
this would make a better video game.
Yeah, I'm already thinking like Triforce style, like as he resolves each situation, it's almost like the Triforce keeps building.
Yeah, I like it. And then like I always want to do like a prequel to Indiana Jones, and like you see where he gets a hat kind of a vibe, like that kind of thing.
How about this? He's the metaphorically, not literally, reincarnation of Joseph Smith, and every time he obtains one of these artifacts or trophies, it's like one of the golden plates, or it's a piece of one of the golden plates, and he's the first one to put them together, because then the first story arc could be him becoming a man, but the second story arc is now he's got to go back to like the world he came from and convince everyone, hey, I've got new information that changes everything.
And he's getting in trouble for it like Butters. They're like, no, stop it. Yeah, I testify that your story is true. That's what's really going on in that universe.
So what would be the third story arc would have to be like he gets his own planet or something, and then
which requires falling in love. Yeah, so this is the manhood ascension thing where like he becomes a planet. It's not just he gets a planet, he becomes this.
We got the three broad story arcs planned out, and that would cover at least 12 episodes. So
is that a Joseph Smith thing, or is that a Dianetics thing, the becoming the planet thing? Is that
I thought that was Mormons.
So everyone argues about this. Apparently, like so I was just talking to Seth about this, and he's like, well, it's not as held as strongly as it was before. I'm like, what the heck do you mean by that? So I went and I read it. I'm like, look, and I just
are they running out of planets, bro?
I threw like
hundreds. Are they running out of planets?
I threw like hundreds of verses down, and it was like this. Like, look at like journals and doctrine. Listen, this like 1880, 1990, 2001. All of it's like everywhere. It's pretty freaking clear what I heard. And and then it's like, well, yeah, but like some of that's based on what Brigham Young said. I'm like, don't hold me back. Brigham Young did nothing wrong, like kind of a vibe.
This is just shrinkflation on every level. That's all that is.
It is because it's like, dude, if you tell these people that they don't have to they don't drink coffee and tobacco, and then they get to have a planet, and then you take away their planet, they're gonna join X Church. I'm telling you, like this is where we're going. We're going to planets. This is happening.
Have you guys seen the Trey Parker, Matt Stone Broadway production of the
Book of Mormon? For sure.
You have. You guys both have. So have I.
I've seen it. Yeah,
let's talk about it.
Amazing.
Do you know it's true?
It is true. It is true. And I'll tell you what. So actually, a friend who I went to go see it with had the same experience, but with Mormons as the guy I went. So like, okay, halfway through the show, you have the intermission. I went out for a cigarette break. I'm talking to this guy. He was from. Where did it take place? Was it Mozambique? I can't remember where it took place, where they go to in Africa, but there's a guy who I was smoking cigarettes with outside who was from there. I was like, oh, how are you enjoying the show? He's like, you won't believe this, but I'm actually from that place. And I was like, no way. I was like, did you know when you went to go see this that was good? He was like, I had no idea. He was like, you don't even know. My mind is blown right now. And I'm like, I was like, I have to ask, like, are you offended? And he goes, well, I would be, but they didn't say anything so far that isn't true. So he was like, that was the thing. He was like, everything they're saying is true. Like, it's really like that, like, whatever. So he's like, no, I'm not offended. And my friend who I went with had been to it previously elsewhere, another showing of it. and there was a row of Mormons there close by, and same thing. What did you think? They're like, well, we would be offended, but there's nothing in there that wasn't true.
Right.
And so that's how they navigated it. It's like that's kind of expert. Like, you're like, how did this show? Like, you'd think that people would be really reacting to that, like, oh, well, you're attacking it. No, they're actually like, nah, this is what it is.
Well, Mormons are like the Canadians of religion. You know what I mean? So
right, totally well put.
That is kind of the other issue there. Like, they won't get offended very easily. And I've seen some try, and it's like so awkward for them. You know, like I've been watching these like online debates between Christians and Mormons, and like I like to just go in there and just start swinging like Neo, and just be like blah, 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 in every direction, and then throw some Catholic artwork in, because nobody's okay with the Catholic artwork. As soon as you get to the divine, but the Mormons are right with everything, because they're like, oh yeah, the divine heavenly mother. All right, we're chill about it.
They're just happy that somebody's making them relevant. You know, they like to be discussed.
Well,
you know,
like I think Mormons too. They can go toe to toe with Roman Catholics, because I mean, this is super biased on my part, but I mean, growing up Roman Catholic,
yeah,
I got used to going into churches that had stained glass and gold filigrees, and like
icons,
you gotta have to be quiet and
imagery,
like it's like you would everything would echo. And then I would go to like a Protestant service with like a friend or something in the military, and I remember them playing clips of movies like Bingo and like giving out saltines and like little pre-served like Welch's grape juice that you peel the top off. And I just remember thinking, like, you guys aren't taking this seriously. Like,
oh man.
You know,
Santa Cruz Bible Church.
They're not even allowed to talk in there, and you guys are singing and dancing.
We had a freaking skate. We had a skate ramps. The Santa Cruz Bible Church would lure all the kids in with a big skate park that they had built by the local skate company, and then they had, oh my gosh, they had like nail polish set up on a table so they could lure in all the girls. So now they had boys going because girls, and girls going because they're like sexualizing this at like 12 years old, you know, or something like that. And then they have puppet shows like the Muppets, Sesame Street, like real puppet shows with letters on strings that fly in, like, oh, look, the letters coming from the mailman. And you're like, are you for real? Like, right now, what is even happening? And yeah, I don't know. We yesterday talked a lot about religion, but just the idea of it's just so weird, because their whole vibe is like, and if you come here, you don't have to do anything ever again, except, you know, give us money every once in a while so we can tell other people, but you can sin forever, which is like such a weird message, like that they've like it's reduced to. But
well, are you implying that because there was nail polish, or was there actually
no, the message is like Christ died so that you don't have to worry about it. And they had pictures. They're like, here's a big cliff and here's heaven, and there's no way to get across it unless you're a tall order of a human being, and there's no tall order unless you have a bridge, and that bridge is Jesus. And it was just like, oh man, you really like, and I get it, because I think that religion used to be memory, like education for it was an extracurricular education. So first it was education at all. There were people that didn't ever had school. Then the Jesuits invented education, but still because they had that, they called the church sort of this thing that the community of farmers, peasants, and even like in the 19th century and 20th century, you know, you can see peasants and farmers are coming to church and they're being taught facts. They're being taught to memorize facts. It's like, Jesus was here at this time. This happened then. Here are the rules. 10 of these, 10 of that, 12 of this, 7 of that. Remember is all memorization. Like you're taking like a early 20th century exit exam to get it out of basic school. That's what the way people were teaching. And as education evolved, you have more and more this idea of critical thinking and teaching how to think, which if you read the Bible is what Jesus did, because he's asked, I mean, I know it's whatever, I'm sorry, but like, it's interesting. It's interesting to me. If you read the Bible, they ask, like, there's all these people that are asking, like, oh yeah, what do you think of this, Jesus? Huh? What about that, Jesus? Huh? And they ask him like 108 questions, and he answers maybe 7 questions, right? Like he doesn't answer any of them the way that
those answers that he gave applied to most of those other questions.
And he also asked over 1,000 questions. I think it's like 2,000 questions that he ends up asking in return. So he's really leaving us with how to ask questions and how to question and think.
We're just talking about the gospel, right? Or are we talking about the Book of Mormon? Are we talking about
gospel?
right
Just the Bible, yeah.
Okay.
No, I advocate for them, but the Dragon Ball Z flying Jesus is like,
he's just
on
really
paper,
good
I'm not
at
a fan,
allegories and what's that? I'm sorry.
I'm saying on paper, I'm not a fan. If I ask somebody one question and they respond with 10 questions, that's kind of annoying, to be honest.
Yeah, but like they were gonna burn him eventually, you know what I mean? And like that's the funny thing. Also, yesterday we were talking about the Midrash and the Kabbalah, and I forget who said like, "Oh well, you don't have to study the Kabbalah until you're like 50." Exactly. So a 33-year-old man dying before he's able to do the Kabbalah studies, who's supposed to be really special, if not the most special ever. That's a big deal, right? Like he was cut off.
That's also not necessarily anything that's set in stone in the slightest, but also even we're talking about then too. But yes, I hear your point. Although wasn't Jesus like a large portion of the time just calling out people's hypocrisies, just like the specific ways in which people were hypocrites?
Yeah, I think the big breakdown is he broke down the rules. He's like, what is the intention behind all these rules? Are you trying to do this for you?
Do you think there's a chance that some of that I guess my concept of Jesus is like an amalgamation of like every cool guy that ever lived, essentially. But I always thought that hypocritical thing was like Diogenes. Like that's Jesus being attributed with some of Diogenes' sort of wisdom, where he would just go out in the public and just call people out and just like lay out nude and like hang out with dogs. And when someone looked at him wrong, he would just be like, "Look at yourself." It was.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he was really if he's actually Jewish. Like if he's that neurotic, it's possible. Like he doesn't have to be Greek, And I think that's its own kind of thing. Diogenes was so spiteful of society. Jesus actually wore really nice clothing. Like people don't understand that a one piece made of that white fabric that's not.
I mean, if you just touch the hem, it's like that. Yeah. Whoa.
People be like, I'm not fit to touch the hem of his garment. Like that's the thing.
That's the hem of his garment we're talking about. That's not even the guy. It's like that, that's some rock star shit right there.
Yeah, he dressed nicely. Like people don't get that. And that's also something that bothers people because people have said like, well, Jesus would show up in a 3-piece suit. And like, I actually, you know what? At first I thought that sounded ridiculous when they said it to Jerry, but now I'm thinking like basically that's what he wore. Maybe
does that mean he'd have a Bugatti?
He might. Yeah, like honestly, like to be honest, because like a donkey is pretty like ghetto fabulous at that time, right? To ride in on a donkey. It's like a small horse. It's a chill horse. Like you can get up on it easily, carries a lot of stuff, it's slow, it's easy. I mean, he was living on kind of a high life. People were rubbing him with oil, right? He had Mary Magdalene rubbing him with oil. Jesus was super upset about that. So I don't think he was living like super terribly.
So maybe the Roman Catholics are onto something with the gold chairs and the high ceilings.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with having gold chairs necessarily. I think using gold, like what are you going to use gold for? Like eventually they should figure out how to use it for like technology more. And I think that's what we're doing. That might be the big argument between the Jesuits and the Masons. But the big agreement is liberation theology. Like they both agree on this idea of, building a world where there's less ableism. Or there's more ableism, depending on how you look at it. Like everyone having the same, we all have fathers, they're just fathers and they're anyone's father. Anyone can have a father. They go anywhere. There's a new father there waiting for them. They all have cells,
I think somebody here is saying, pretty sure no one knows what Jesus wore. It's all stories written and rewritten since forever. Yes. And I think it's a good exercise to just like entertain, we definitely are riffing on our imagination, but there's indicators. You're touching the hem of someone's garment and you're freaking, just completely blasted, like that's saying something, I think.
I'm going to make who said that? I'm going to make him watch the Netflix adaptation with
he should or he could watch Marilyn Manson's Antichrist Superstar with Jesus Christ Superstar, which is on my Twitter.
That's true. I do remember like when I was young, I think I said this before, but I remember it as being a strong memory is when the Mormons came over and I was like, I'm burning DVDs like fast. Cause like I just do that all the time so I could sell them to my teachers at school and like I'd have enough money to like eat Chinese food every day. And so just burning DVDs and watching Jesus Christ Superstar. And it's like 2000, so it was like pretty impressive to these Mormons. Like they're not from Silicon Valley. this is just like out of control to them. And then they see Jesus Christ Superstar and they're like, oh man, what are you watching? I'm like, that's Jesus Christ Superstar. And they see like the purple like uniforms and they're holding machine guns and like, oh, this is not right. They didn't have machine guns. And I was just like, oh dude, you guys are not,
Whoosh.
you do not want to be the ones to be telling me about anachronisms right now. Don't do that.
There is a great debate from the 70s with some of the Monty Python guys. I think John Cleese and Eric Idle are there, and it's with a bishop. And it was when Life of Brian came out. They were basically like, it was very controversial because theaters had been shut down for showing Jesus Christ Superstar not that long before that.
What? Why?
Yeah, they talk about it in this debate. So like, I'm just like, I recommend it. Like, it's probably on YouTube or whatever. But it was just like, because they're just like, we didn't make a movie about Jesus. We made a movie about Brian, and this bishop is just like, oh my God, you can see he's so pissed off about it. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Obviously.
But it is kind of like about Brian. Like, that's the thing. Like, it is kind of a step away from Jesus, because it's like the idea is there are a lot of other people at that time. Like Pontius Pilate crucified a bunch of people.
Well, it's Siddhartha. Siddhartha did the same thing. Siddhartha is not about Buddha, but it's like, you're like, wow, this story is shockingly similar to Buddha, but it's not Buddha. It's this other guy, because they mentioned Buddha in Hermann Hesse's book, like that this is happening at the same time. There's this other guy over here doing this thing. So, they're similar. Actually, I would say Siddhartha and Life of Brian are basically the equivalent of each other.
Germans are just never funny, are they? They tried so hard. I wanted to say also about the Nigerian church, because it's pretty hilarious, actually, the story here. Because, like, I'd always heard I actually heard the Book of Mormon musical like story first.
Is that where they went? Nigeria?
Yeah, well, at least in real life, like, this is what happened in real life in Nigeria. Like, so there's a bunch of cool stuff that, like, for instance, General Butt Naked, I think, is from Burkina Faso. Or where is he from? Is he from like Monrovia or something like that? Like, there's Liberia, Monrovia. There's a General Butt Naked, and in the movie, in the musical, it's General Butt Effing Naked, but it's still General Naked. It's a guy who went in. It's a big naked guy who would take off his clothes and he'd charge into battle during the Cannibal Wars in Monrovia and Liberia. And they would, he would eat people. He'd eat babies and things. It was like horrible. And so, and they talk about female circumcision and all these things. Like, it's all in the musical, the Book of Mormon. It talks about real things. Like I had my mom listen to it. And my mom, like, this is incredible that they're talking about these things. Yeah. And my mom thought it was a great, and she doesn't like Mormons really because she's Catholic. She doesn't hate or anything really, but
the way you said it.
She's not like, she doesn't want me being one. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, he's got maggots in his scrotum. It's rough.
Yeah. Well, and my mom was also a doctor, and she's all about Doctors Beyond Borders and all that stuff. So she's like, this is like, I know. I remember when someone told me they had this guy and he had maggots in his scrotum, and I was like, oh, Mom. You have like personal memories of this actually happened. It's crazy. So, but in Nigeria in the 50s, let me see if I can find the article about this. Basically,
do the Mormons go as hard at other countries as Africa, or do they like laser focus on Africa?
So there's a big joke that's like, oh, hi, do you have, like, you come into your door, like, do you have internet? No? Oh, would you like to learn about the Book of Mormon? Like, because a lot of people have really, the internet's aimed itself at like destroying them and like, destroying their group, and it's like lumped in. They have like all this stuff. So it's really hard. But in Africa, it does pretty well because it is very similar to a lot of traditional shamanic beliefs, right? Like, you do baptize for the dead because you're doing rituals in the flesh for some spirit that doesn't have flesh. And just, it's very intuitive logic to a lot of Africans. And there was also an issue, which was that because the church had not allowed blacks to join for a while, but if you knew that the church had allowed blacks to join originally, the RDLS, the reorganized LDS church, were going off and converting people. So they were leading them back essentially to becoming Mormon. But in the 50s, I was trying to find the article, but I can't. I'll just try to remember how to tell this story as best I can. The Mormon church got a guy who was like, look, we're already starting to convert in Brazil, and it's really complicated because it's like, how am I supposed to know whether someone's black or not? or whether they have a drop of black blood. Like, this is not going to make any sense. It's not going to work. Are you telling me that this guy, because his great-great-great-great-grandmother, now we have to excommunicate him after we thought he was white because he looks white? Like, what do you want from us? And that particularly hit with Polynesia and Hawaii in the 50s. He was like, I'm pretty sure I can, like, these people get what we're talking. They can be Mormon, you know, they can do the priesthood. So they were like, all right, well, these guys are from another line. They're from not from this thing. So it was starting to break down. So they're like, okay, well, we'll send some priests to, actually, I think the guy volunteered. He's like, I really feel like I got to go to Nigeria. And the church is like, okay, they're going to put you in pots. Like, which is why I also recently I asked,
I asked him, the Bugs Bunny. I mean, come on, cautionary tale.
And George of the Jungle,
Popeye too.
And I promise you 2 missionaries for every pot. That's like literally in George of the Jungle. Yeah,
Lil Devil too, I think, which was a comic book.
Yeah, but I talked to some missionaries recently because I was trying to get help our friend. We have a friend, Abiza, who's in Nigeria, and we're trying to help him get out of Nigeria. And I was like, maybe the Mormon Church can help him out. And they're like, I'm like, what's the deal there? Like, well, we don't have any white people in Nigeria because they'll put us in pots, is what he said. And I was like, whoa. But we do have they have Nigerian temples and they have Nigerian priesthood. I'm like, well, okay, well, how does that work then? When did it happen? So apparently in the 50s, this guy goes to Nigeria because he says, I really need to do this. I believe in my mission. But while he's over there, again, this is 20 years before they let black people into the priesthood. So he's baptizing people and he's trying to set up this thing where he's going to be the Jesuit. You know, he's going to be in charge of this community and baptizing and doing all the things they can't do because they're black. But also the Mormon Church realizes this is crazy. It's not going to work. It's super dangerous. He's going to get killed. They have no contact with him for like 6 years or 3, some amount of years he's down there until they finally get him out. They're like, dude, get out. Like, you got to leave. Get out as quickly as possible. So the Mormon Church abandoned the Nigerian mission. So all of a sudden you have a cargo cult because they start believing in, these people believed in Mormonism. They have these like de facto temples going. Now they have real temples, because for 20, 30, 40 years, they developed their own priesthood called I forget the name, man. I'm sorry. It's like the Soweto Saints, the first Soweto Saints, the Saints of Soweto. So they were like really like, so when people got back there, they're like, whoa, you guys think you're Mormon, don't you? But you're not, because everything you believe isn't from, you have all these other beliefs. You believe things that Brigham Young and the old church used to believe, plus you believe African stuff. You've created, so it was literally the exact story of the Book of Mormon musical. They did the exact same thing, but this happened in the 50s to the 70s. So it's crazy because I think, people don't realize like that actually went down.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah, it's so believable. And you know what? I think just even on the tip of like how similar, like, how complementary Star Wars and Lord of the Rings are to one another, and how like well of a stand-in that is for the Book of Mormon,
I feel like that would be, you could just go and spread that as the Star Wars gospel or as the Lord of the Rings gospel, like Tolkienism.
Nigerian Mormonism, you're saying? Bring that back? Or what?
Or you could just go and actually spread, just like, I guess this is how you would win like a game of Civilization, is you would just go and spread like culture points. But you could just go and, if we were to like put sleeper cells in, right? Like instead of the Americans where they wake up and it's all like political assassination, we just send American missionaries out to every country, but it's just like, hey, have you seen this movie? Have you heard this album?
Right.
Hey, have you had this like new McDonald's with the new fries? Have you tried the new Big Mac? And if you just seed that throughout the world, that feels like it would elevate, like the religion of America.
Have you seen the Coca-Cola Kid with Eric Roberts?
The gods must be crazy. No.
Yeah, it's really like a very similar movie in its own way. It's made by like a Serbian or Yugoslavian film director, but it's made with Eric Roberts and shot in Australia. Yeah, it's Australian. It's weird, dude. Eric Roberts is like this secret agent spy for Coca-Cola. He's not like he's the all-American boy, but he is the Coca-Cola kid. Like it's crazy. He's a corporate spy, and he goes to Australia because the Coca-Cola company's not doing its job, in his opinion. Like, they're not Coca-Cola ideology. It's all about the ideology. And he's like, I have to make sure. He's like, why are there people here that aren't drinking Coca-Colas as I walk in? Like, why is it not that everyone's wearing like Coca-Cola merchandise? You don't have like a Coca-Cola lapel. You don't even have Coca-Cola socks on right now. Like, he starts freaking out. And then they pull up this projector because they use this whiteboard. He brings in a projector because it's the 80s. And he's like, boom. And like, he just flew in. And on his way in, he finds like an Aboriginal guy on the street who's a musician. And he gives him money. And he's like, you're coming with me. And then he records a Coca-Cola commercial with the street musician, you know, and with like some famous musicians to back it up to make it like pop. And then he's like, all right, look at this map. Why aren't they selling Coca-Cola in this region? And it's like a war, you know, like it's like Desert Storm. It's like, we're going to have to figure out why we're not selling Coca-Cola in this region. And he goes in there and he infiltrates that region as a spy in order to find out what it is. It's because there's this old man who makes, you know, apple soda in his own like way from the 1900s there. And so he has to he does everything he can. He trades women and men and children, whatever he has to with guns.
I'm having a couple thoughts here. One I'm thinking of Zizek. Is that how you say his name? The
Slavoj Zizek, yeah. Or Zizek,
so he had that take on Coca-Cola where he's talking about he's using it as a way to articulate something about fascism, or the way that there's like this other thing that you can't quite pinpoint. It's kind of like how mysticism is an aspect of like kind of like cultural indoctrination, and how, you know, when you say like, what is it about Coca-Cola, you can't quite pinpoint it. But, you know, I can't do his whole spiel.
Taco says Zizek is a hack. I'd love to hear more because, you know, the thing is, everyone always said that. And then I watched him debate Jordan Peterson. And I'm like, oh, wait, Jordan is no, I love you, Jordan. I'm just kidding. But like, I'm just saying, I think Taco, you might want to check that again. Have you read his books instead of just listening to
that guy is so prolific too.
You might not like his sound. That might be the thing.
That might be what it is.
By the way, happy Donald Duck's birthday was earlier this week.
You know,
Donald Duck's birthday was Friday the 13th, and happy birthday, Donald.
Oh, for real? Is that just from the comics that they determined?
He's born on Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th, yeah.
Okay.
That's Donald Duck's birthday.
Is he a Templar?
Yeah. Yeah, he is. But yeah, the religion of Coca-Cola. Has anyone ever watched people drink Coca-Cola for the first time? Like, I loved this. I used to go on YouTube when it was first available, and I would get videos of people like drinking Coca-Cola in like the 1950s when they bring Coca-Cola to China in the 80s. Like, there'd be like Chinese people getting Coca-Cola. They're like, what is that? These glass bottles with black bubbles in it, and they're like, this looks like some like Chinese medicine like stuff. And these vans, right? Because if you've ever seen like the Jesuits come in and they're wearing all black, well, the Coca-Cola comes in, they're wearing all white, and they have these red trucks, and it's like Santa Claus kind of symbolism. And the red and white's like the barber stripe color also, and the spiraling, it's like looks like it's Arabic, and it's just like Coca-Cola. And you're like, I don't know what that means yet, but I will. And you drink it.
Is it still Coca at that time? Is that what you're saying? Like,
well, so the other thing is, it still does have Coca-Cola. It still does have Coca in it, but they extract it, right? So if you look at the plant, they make it with Coca-Cola, and then they take out the cocaine, but it still has Coca in the flavoring. So it's kind of similar to the insufflated leaf we were talking about from tobacco.
It's like a mistake. Like, it's already got the freaking corn syrup and everything. It's like, just go with it, man.
Have you been to Bolivia and had like Bolivian colas? Because Bolivian make Coca-Cola with cola de coca, and it's like actually got coca in it.
I don't know. I just know I was up for 3 days at Burning Man, and I was ready to crash, and it was the morning, and the guy that I knew was just like, here, have some of this. And it was, you know, green with the lime or whatever, and I put it in my gums, and it was like, and then I was not tired for the rest of the day, and I was so great. And I came to find out, I'm sure you know all about this, but there's a whole thing, and I believe it was Peru, where, you know, maybe I'm so bad at this stuff, but maybe the conquistadors, it was like they took things from like the you know, colonizers took things from the people that were that they had around. That was one of them was chewing on the leaf, and then they had them working for them. And at a certain point, they were like, "Wow, the work rate, like you're not producing like you had been." You know, and it was like, maybe this doesn't have to be so pagan. Like, maybe we can just let them keep this, and that's why we apparently have like, because they're like, wow, they're their work production had just really decreased when they stopped chewing on that leaf. You know,
it's also.
Well, I was gonna say when I went to Peru, I had like what you call altitude sickness because I lived in Florida for like a decade, and all of a sudden I'm in the mountains, and everyone was just like, "Go get yourself some coca," and I thought they were kidding, but there were so many cool little like cafes where you just sit down and like they specialize in coca tea, and you would just have like the the right 2 or 3 of those things. And you're ready to like climb a mountain.
Yeah, I was in Sucre, which is like base camp Mount Everest elevation, like 13,000 feet, and I was like fainting trying to cross streets and stuff, and I was not doing anything. And they're like, "Dude, you need to chew this." Like, no, we're not kidding at this point. And so after that, then I was like the rest of the time I'm in Peru, but it was very different than like hyperstimulants or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing; it's a lot more like tea.
It's like a kick above mate, I would say.
But I mean, I was in Potosi, and Potosi is like the silver mines. And so those are like the most active silver mines. And they've got Quechua that basically live underground, and they have a statue. Actually, can I find the statue of Tio? Hold on. Tia statue. Yeah, there it is. They have this statue of the devil thing, but it's actually God. It's their Peruvian demon god thing. He's holding his phallus, and they just hang like coca leaves.
It's kind of like an Ewok or something, but maybe I'm not looking.
You can't. I don't want to zoom in too hard because he's gonna go right to his phallus. Hold on, let's go over there so I can just scoop over here first. All right, this is his head. He's got horns and everything like that.
Oh, I see him. Okay,
and you can think like Dios is God, but the Tio because they pronounce the D as a T, and it's Tio. But the Potosi mine, they go in there for and they have since the 1600s. They go in there for 36 hours at a time. And so the way they know how long that they've been in there is basically the amount of coca left in their mouth. Like if they've had this huge wad in their mouth for 8 hours to 12 hours, and it stops working at a certain point. So that's, And so every single one of them, here he is with his mouthful of coca. Right.
I like the ways that we measure time that aren't like, what you might like. It would be like go on a road trip and you'd be like, well, how many cassette tapes am I going to listen to? And you'd be like 3.5. And you're like, oh, that's quite a long trip.
Yeah. I do miss like albums being measured. Once I realized albums were like, how come this album is so short? Like, oh, it's because they did it on cassette tape. That's like a major.
All right.
Okay, so Paranoid American was working on Frazzledrip Funhouse. Is that the new project that we're going to talk about?
Yeah, man, that's the new one. It's the one that needs backers right now to keep pumping this thing up.
Dude, so Frazzledrip Funhouse. Here, let me see if I can play the
good news is I already got enough raised to do the print runs, so the print run's already in the works. Now it's just a matter of like how much cool stuff is going to get thrown in on all these.
Are we? Oh, you're looking to play it with sound. I don't know if we.
Yeah, there's no sound here.
Yeah, we got no sound, dude.
I tried so hard to get it to work, but I think I'm gonna have to.
It's a homage to B horror movies. So this is like a love letter to all of the gory movies from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s.
Sorry, I have to play it through my microphone. Hopefully, it sounds okay.
Frazzledrip Funhouse. Enter if you dare. The world of an animatronic bear whose metallic heart beats with a thirst for justice, a hunger for revenge. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, connoisseurs of the macabre and seekers of the scandalous. Your voracious appetites for chilling narratives are about to be satiated by the heart-stopping, pulse-pounding creation of Paranoid American and Winged Sun comics. Abandoned in the dusty corners of amusement, now awoken in the murk of wickedness perpetrated by an evil elite. And this is not your childhood fairy tale, but a macabre dance of vindication, soaked in crimson, a symphony of screams echoing in the dimly lit chambers of malevolence. Be prepared for an onslaught of ghastly gore and titillating terror. A wicked waltz through twisted hallways and blood-stained basements where only the brave dare to tread. Quake at the bear's unyielding pursuit, cackle at the sharp and sardonic one-liners, shudder at the graphic, gratuitous scenes that harken back to the glory days of B-horror flicks. Frazzledrip Funhouse is your ticket to a thrill ride of terror. A carnival of carnage where the laughs are as loud as the screams. Uncover the truth beneath the rust and the blood, and remember, nothing is as it seems. Are you ready to step into the Frazzledrip Funhouse, where the animatronic eyes are always watching, and vengeance is a game that everyone can play? Get your backer exclusive cover on Indiegogo. For more information, visit paranoidamerican.com. Oh yeah.
This one is a project that I feel is pushing the limit in a few different ways. Like I can't even believe that I was able to put the title Frazzledrip on Indiegogo.
What is Frazzledrip? Could you explain that to me? And
this is a good place. You're allowed to do it here. I figure the safest place you could do that.
Are you serious? I mean,
I don't know. If you want to talk about adrenochrome, that's fine. I don't have a problem.
It's not
with that.
censored even from Google. I don't think. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that I watched.
I feel like it's like instant demonetization at the very least.
Basically, the idea is like is he a bear or he's a werewolf that drinks adrenochrome?
Okay, let's talk about
Frazzledrip. He drinks Frazzledrip. I'm sorry.
so Frazzledrip is a reference to a very specific alleged video that apparently was. I don't have some of this wrong because it's like
it wasn't the video what got us into Benghazi. Wasn't there like an internet video with Benghazi?
John McAfee releases Frazzledrip video, right? John McAfee. For anyone watching J-Max Telegram channel, you might have mentioned Frazzledrip in the past.
The story that I've latched onto, and there's a million different ones, but the one that makes the most sense if you have to make it make sense.
It's the Hillary film that might have been on the island. You know what I mean?
Well, it was Anthony Weiner apparently had like a special folder on his laptop, and it was marked like insurance or something innocuous. And inside of that was a folder called frazzled.rip. And then inside that folder, which was frazzled.rip, and then Frazzledrip was a video of here we go. Yeah,
guys, just so you know, Snopes tells you this is false. We just want you to know. False is telling you this is false. All right, there you go.
So I mean, you could just see it, but like she's doing something that's not very nice.
Is there a Hillary Clinton snuff film circulating on the dark web? Snopes says false. False.
Look at that. How much can you handle? That was the name of the video.
So we're good.
So the general premise though is that they cut off somebody's face and then they like wear the face, and then that man, it makes me think of The Mask. Remember the original Mask movie when he's talking about when you like put on another face and you get all the power from it.
That's what that's about.
It's essentially that magical ritual, but then it's hyped up into this whole new like QAnon.
Oh man, we need to do a whole rundown on the Eyes Wide Shut of The Mask. Because The Mask is about that.
And the original comic is insane. It's one of the best comics.
I haven't read it.
You know that he's Bill. And what is the connection between Eyes Wide Shut and the Ninth Gate? There's many. There's several. You want to know, go where the rainbow ends, right? And then where is the castle at the end when he's on the back of that vehicle with the, I think it's with cattle or something. He's actually going towards the castle and you see the rainbow ends where the castle is, where there's that's a lot to get into, but yeah, the parallels between the Ninth Gate and Eyes Wide Shut are there's many. It's actually not the first time that happened with Kubrick and Polanski too. You can look at Tess and Barry Lyndon, but anyway, Bill. I mean, he's Bill, and he's always at the gate. He gets the thing that the card from the guy, the letter from the guy, saying to give up his inquiries further. Like he already got the warning, something's going to happen to his family, but it's Bill at the gate. It's Bill Gates. It's like he keeps showing up at these gates. And so, and then would you kindly remove your mask, or would you, one mask, two masks, three masks, Fauci's on, sorry.
Well, also Bill Gates is like, because he's a great poker player, and that's what he's known for. Like he programmed solitaire for Windows 95, and that's his like one of his major contributions. Like Steve Jobs, I love him and all, but like he didn't program. You know what I mean? Bill Gates, he's not like great, but he did right.
He stole it, man. Did he? Write it? But actually, you know what? I don't know if you've seen the James Corbett like series on Bill Gates, but it's freaking amazing. And I think I'm going to put it on Twitter because I found it yesterday. I got like 9-10 hard drives And I was like, I knew it was in one of them, and I just stumbled on it. I was like, I started watching it again. I was like, this is amazing. It was like as fast as I went up, it was gone. I don't even know if it ever made it back on the internet. So I'm just like, I'm at a place right now. Like right now, I'm looking at my hard drives. I'm like, what have I got in here? That because I shared that Tracy Twyman video, you know. And I was just like, what? And the other one I was talking to Thomas earlier before the call was the Louis C.K. movie. I Love You, Daddy. And I'm like, should I just put that up? Like, is that okay? Am I allowed to do that? Like, I feel like I should. Like, that was a censored movie or whatever. There's no reason for that movie to be censored other than the controversy that he was experiencing.
He kind of ripped off the guy when he bought MS-DOS. I don't want to say like dubious circumstances. Like he didn't like throw him out of a helicopter. Like it's not like the Disney movies. You know?
Have you synced Pirates of Silicon Valley yet?
Oh, please do.
No.
Have you? You haven't? I love Pirates.
I mean, in my opinion, that's one of the better Steve Jobs movies that's ever come out.
That's when he drops the acid and he's conducting a symphony on the floor or whatever. When he's like, is that one? I get mixed up because there's the made-for-TV movie about Steve Jobs. Is that not what you're talking about?
This is the one. Yeah, the Pirates of Silicon Valley. I believe
from like the late '90s or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Is that
the one? I watched that at the time. Yeah, and it's in his autobiography too, apparently, about the acid. Because I guess if I remember right, they were like trying to sell these computers door to door. People weren't having it. Like the way, and so he didn't understand advertising at the time. Really, it was just like they're like just a bunch of nerds. But he was like he had like a bunch of sunshine acid. So like the thing was going under, and he was just like, "Screw it, guys. Let's get high." And they were like not hippies. They like weren't hip. So they were just like, whatever, Steve, you're being whatever. No, and he was like, and then he eats it all. I'm just saying what I remember.
That's
from
the. I think you're talking about
the dramatization.
I think you're talking about what I agree with you is the best Steve Jobs movie. It just happens to be the least true one. It's the Funny or Die. Steve was the movie that came out. So all the movies came out like within like 2-3 weeks of each other, and this group said, we're going to get the guy from the Apple commercials and have him play Steve Jobs. And what we'll do is we'll make this movie as quickly as possible. We'll shoot it in less than 3 to 5 days. And we won't even write it. Well, in fact, we'll write it right now without researching whatever we kind of remember or think about Steve Jobs. And they just made this thing up.
I'm going to have to get back to you. We're going to have to.
Computers. The entire world will listen to it.
They say you're a renegade. Sword.
Is this an advertisement for it?
Oh man, is it just they don't even want to show you?
Yeah, it's not it.
Yeah, they're not showing you.
If you look up like Steve Jobs LSD scene, I bet you'll find it.
Oh man, they don't want you to know.
You pay YouTube $14 a month. Wow.
Somebody does.
Oh, I see.
It was this one though, and he does acid with them. The thing that's true though that you have to know is that Steve Jobs went to India with one of his friends who he had working for their company that he would cut out.
I saw this in the late 90s or early 2000s.
And by the time he was working on Apple, he'd already come back from India. So like he had gone to India, he'd studied under a guru. He had a friend with him that went to India with him who smoked a lot of weed, and they smoked weed there. But when he got back, he was really against smoking pot. And so he got really annoyed and he cut out of the stock deals his like closest friends who had just been stoners that he had soldering and building assembly for him. He's like, I can get anyone to do assembly in China. I don't need you. You're not like proactive or productive. So a lot of people were very hurt by him doing that. And yeah, he did kind of like, he totally ripped off Wozniak, his friend, because he was, he was starve crazed. Like his family weren't allowed to have him. So because he was married out of wedlock or some weird thing happened. The dad and mother gave him up for adoption. And years later, he went and found his dad, and his dad owned Boomtown, which is like this casino in Reno and Vegas area. So like, he's like, why did you guys give me up? So because he ended up super lucky because he ended up in a really great family, but he was just embarrassed all of his life that he always felt like and people made fun of him. Like these rich Los Altos kids would make fun of him for not having his own family. Right. So Steve Jobs always had something to prove, and he always felt like he needed. Wozniak didn't. Wozniak just liked to hack. He just wanted friends. I think Wozniak thought it was a fine trade to lose all the money because he got to keep a friend. So it's super sad when you look at like the difference between them. But the real issue is like when after they built Apple II, because he was like, I'm going to build a machine that doesn't allow you to upgrade it. And Wozniak's like, that's Satanism.
All right,
Like,
Andreas, look in the private chat. I just sent you the scene from freaking Pirates of the Silicon Valley LSD scene. It's like 1 minute long. It's
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is an exaggeration. It's awesome though.
Of course, it's an exaggeration. This is a dramatization. Yeah.
I love movies about acid from people who've never done acid. Those are my favorite. They're like, what could it be like? You know, it's like they're so imaginative. Yeah, you know what? Hitler did that. You got to be really careful. So, but no, I think that
is that true?
There's a scene, right, where he's like out there and he's telling the girls to like just dance, and she's like, it's cold. He's like, just dance, and he's just like conducting Wagner in his mind. I think it's a schizophrenia. Or is it? No, the other one. What did he have? Syphilis. That's the one that they like. The movies they like to present that he had syphilis.
They like to say that. They like to say that about Nietzsche too. And apparently, it came out with Nietzsche that was actually there was like a hit piece on him that was like when he died. That was like they wanted to besmirch his name. And there's like because everyone said that forever that he had syphilis or whatever.
What about JFK? Have you ever heard that before? That towards the end he had a syphilitic like brain, and that he was basically being steered around and kept alive on just like opiates and amphetamines, in addition to whatever was going on with his
I mean,
head.
I don't know about the syphilis. It could have been the syphilis, but I feel like the drugs at that level when he was on like PCP. They were giving him like instead of opiates at a certain point, they tried to wean him off opiates because it was bad for him, and they were giving him disassociatives. And so he was one of the first PCP presidents, and I think that's interesting, like in and of itself. Like he was, that's gonna make you a little weird,
What brought about the revelation that made his head just explode like that?
That was when he reached enlightenment, I think.
Yeah,
that was like the exact moment.
No, I gotta give credit where credit's due. That's a Mark LeClaire theory. Rest in peace.
Can somebody do me a favor in the audience, and if you can find I, Steve, the Steve Jobs movie that was written, directed, and shot in less than a week with the Apple commercial kid, let me know, because I really love this movie. This movie's insane. Like, they did a really good job with it.
Is this like a Yankovic movie? Have you seen?
It's exactly. This is the original Yankovic movie.
Okay.
Except it's about Steve Jobs, and it's so good. It's like made 2013. It's years ago. But the idea of the film is, well, I mean, like at one point, Bill Gates' wife, Melinda Gates, and Steve Jobs, they have that like online virtual reality sex from Demolition Man. Like, it's so good. It's
okay, I have to see this now.
It's really, really, I'm telling you, it's worth it.
Hey, when's the last time you guys have seen Disclosure with Michael Douglas and Demi Moore? The AI, the Oculus shit at the end of that movie. Oh my god, it's like I had to revisit like Lawnmower Man at a certain point, and like The Net with Sandra Bullock, and it's like the way that some of these movies like age or whatever, but there's this whole thing with like not AI, but the virtual reality weirdness. It's just, I don't know.
I got to, except for my current website, every website I've had for the last 20 years has had a little pie symbol in the bottom right, and if you clicked on it, it opened up that scene from The Net.
Oh, okay. Yeah, awesome. The movies are so much better now. Like Disclosure's better now than it was at the time, for that.
I gotta say, Lawnmower Man, I don't feel like it holds up as well.
No, it does. Does it hold up? It's so bad it's good kind of thing, Yeah. This is the same.
I'm ranting back here, like, no, stop it, no. I'm just like, you can't even hear me. But I love Lawnmower Man. Honestly, I think Lawnmower Man's hyper underrated. First off, any movie that has that early virtual reality, like, this is anthropologically historic to show people what virtuality was like, and this is a little bit more than what virtuality was like. This was like what virtuality could have been like. You know what I mean? I remember in the Santa Cruz boardwalk, we had a virtuality system that sat broken for 15 years. It just sat there at the boardwalk, and people would walk around. You could put it over your head; it would just be static, and it was like horrible to think about how we could have had this for years. And it's something that is important because it's hyper reactive, so you can move as quickly as you think you can move. but also it doesn't look real. So it reminds you that there are other dimensions, there's other depths of perception, there's non-Euclidean realities. That was the thing I think that Lawnmower Man really tapped into. And it's been a while since I thought about it, like the book versus the movie, right? But basically the idea of this is like an L. Ron Hubbard's story, the way the movie has been turned into it. Because using this technology, he's rapidly accelerated, and it's showing like the potential for anyone to become rapidly accelerated. And at that time, you know, Scientology was talking about how we're doing multiple things. We're taking most of our money and we're putting it into these groups to help people bring them up to the bottom level, right? We have to help Narconon, help the drug addicts. We have to help the schizophrenics. We help crazy people and poor people and homeless people. You know, we put it in that order and we bring them up to the level. But once we're at that level, we keep bringing them up. We're trying to bring normal people up to the higher level. And what, you know, if you can see the differences we make between taking a schizophrenic person and making them fine, what we can do to like a normal person, like this is Miscavige's.
Right. Well, it's kind of like Awakenings, right? Because the guy's handicapped. It's been a while, but there's like a bunch of repeat like things that played on that theme, like Phenomenon with John Travolta, where it's like you rise, and you just fucking
the Ashes of Amdolin or something like that. Or
you're saying I'm sorry, I want to say Flowers for Alderaan, but it's not
Flowers
Alderaan.
Of, is that right? Flowers
it's
for
not
Alderaan.
Alderaan. It's the other
Algernon.
thank you. Algernon, thank you. I always want to say Alderaan though, because it's
Flowers for Alderaan. Yeah. So I mean,
which started with a mouse, but then there's the movie with the handicapped person. But yeah, which it had a different name. What's the movie called? Charlie. Yeah, it's called Charlie.
Yeah. I mean, so the idea of like ascension is interesting because, you know, you do deal a lot with this idea of like trying to help people just get to a basic human level. And, you know, that's not the be all end all goal. I think a lot of people are like, I want to ascend. I want to be magical. I want to have OT8 powers. Yeah, it's not something you can.
I want to be our sex with Sandra Bullock.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and so like to me, it's also like the mask, because the mask is all about like, you know, it's kind of like Bill Gates or Bill Clinton went to Haiti and got a mask or something, right? It's like I'm a nebbish. I have very little social power, but when I put on this mask, I, you know, become the thing, and that thing is like a beast, and it's empowered by something beyond.
Well, what's the archetype behind? It's Icarus. I named him Icarus after you, my renegade pupil. You fly too high, Max. You'll get burnt. Sorry, pie.
Pie.
But is it Icarus? Because like Icarus is Icarus, Icarus, if he flies too high, you get burnt. Yeah, I guess. I mean, but the mask is like
I had this idea. I don't know. I was just like, when he says I named him Icarus after you, my renegade pupil. I just want to like do a meme where like his eye is like going off to the side, like he's got a renegade pupil.
That's so niche.
Do we think there's any merit to Son of the Mask?
I haven't seen it.
Have you ever heard the theory that I swear I read this, and it might have just been like a joke, but the guy who starred in it, I can't remember his name. It wasn't David Augustine, but he said that the original edit was like really smart and really good. Jamie, right? That's who
Jamie Kennedy experiment. Yeah.
Jamie Kennedy. And I heard this whole thing where like it was really a good movie, but then they ruined it and they made it bad in the editing.
Oh, so it's like Half Baked, huh?
Wait, what's the theory on Half Baked?
Well, it's not a theory. It's what Dave Chappelle said happened. So he's like, we shot a certain movie, and then like, and they kept on doing these other scenes that they were just like, and he's like, that's stupid. And they're like, no, we're not really going to use it. It's just, you know, like, and he didn't realize that they scammed him, you know, because it's like the movie when it came out, he was like, what the frick is this? These are all the scenes that you said we weren't actually going to use, blah, blah, blah. You know, so, but
it's a whole half of the movie. Yeah, he was not going to make a movie where like he gave up the drugs. It was all these little scenes that they added. He's like, you can see how uncomfortable he is in the scene. He's like, yeah, I guess since you're paying me to shoot it, and I have to shoot random stuff, and this is for acting practice, right? And
you ever shot this scene on weed?
And that's the other thing is you look at all the anti-drug videos in the 60s and 70s, and like I remember watching them, and they're like, wow, by the end of the video this guy's like, he's coming up onto, you know, he took this stuff right before they shot this thing, and now that they're nearly done, he's gonna go for a walk, you know. So But yeah, the Jamie Kennedy mask was broken for sure, but it's still kind of the same point of like somebody in Hollywood who joins the Eyes Wide Shut cult. You know, he gets a mask. He's able to live a way that he wasn't able to live before, like he's living above normal man. But it's also changing him, turning him into somebody who's less human, and he's doing horrible things. And eventually, I think that destroys you because you end up like, you know, with a helicopter looking for your tiger, like Phil Spector or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, Phil Spector just keeps coming up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just keep it. It's like, you know, I guess, you know, he does kind of look a little bit
right
like
there.
who's the guy that just played him? Al Pacino. And I'm
Really?
like, oh, it's another case of like Al Pacino as whoever the hell he happens to be, you know, Jimmy Hoffa or whatever.
Wait,
it's
is
like,
that Phil Spector or is that Al Pacino? I can't even tell anymore. What's even happening? I had like a weird interest in Phil Spector because I was like wondering like what it would be like to grow up the son of Phil Spector. Phil Spector has, I think he adopted a kid. Is that the one? He adopted this guy, and he basically never talked to him ever. And he got like bodyguards, and the bodyguards raised his kid. And so his bodyguard his bodyguard always thought like this guy's like kind of crazy and he does horrible things with women. He's never around for son. And I think that rubbed off on his son, who noticed he never saw his dad. So now, you know, the son who's again adopted, he looks more like his bodyguard trainer than the guy, you know, thankfully, Phil Spector. This is what Phil Spector looked like at the end there.
Oh God. Yeah, no, that's rough.
Was
man.
the crazy hair a wig?
No, I think it's just he has it pulled over and sprayed so that it comes up over his head.
It's product, you know.
Wow. So that was actually like down to his ass.
Yeah, this is just going over. It's a big.
Okay, that's not real.
That was a dramatic reenactment to understand what he was doing with his hair.
This is in court, right? We're looking at a picture of him in court. Wow,
that's a super power move. I just got to say, that's like the ultimate power move.
Well, it didn't work. So I mean, I don't know how much power he had, right? Like, because remember he got arrested because he had like women in cages escaping into the Malibu hills. And so he released puma or tiger. I think it was a tiger. And he released tigers to chase. And so that was when the neighborhood was like, dude, like you can't just have wild tigers running around our neighborhood chasing.
Right. It worked in the 70s for him because those were wild times, you know. You could get away with a lot more. But it was like there was a certain point with Phil where it's like, no, dude, this is. And you know what? It's not like he produced a bunch of Beatles records. He produced one Beatles record and it's Let It Be. You know, and he could not let it be. He just wanted to bring it up at every party. And he did that one Leonard Cohen album, Death of a Ladies Man. And it's like the one time where Leonard Cohen's just like, yeah, no, I really like, I don't even know what happened. Like, he totally like, I thought that I didn't even know that these were going to be the final tracks, whatever. He just took it and ran with it. He
Chappelled me.
he got Chappelled. Yeah, Leonard Cohen got a bit Chappelled by Phil Spector with Death of a Ladies Man for sure.
That is true. I mean, that reminds me of something important, which is that we got King Black Acid showed up on vinyl. And so this is a really, you want to talk about this record, but Dave?
You just got that sent to you. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, he brought you up when he contacted me. That's great.
Yeah. So he apparently, I think you're on this record. Is that right, Dave?
No, I did another album cover for him for Super Beautiful Magic in the past, and so he sent me a couple copies of this, and it's funny. I just listened to it, and I was like, I'm not going to send him a message until I listen to the full album, you know, because it's weird to thank somebody for something. It's more personal for me. It's like an energetic thing. Like I don't like to like thank somebody for something if it's music or a film or something. I haven't actually like taken the time to take it in, but I listened to it earlier today, and it was really good.
Yeah, well, this looks pretty sweet, actually. I mean, there's a CD too, so I don't know if I can even play the CD.
Oh, that's my art. Yeah, that's the old one.
There's the one with the art. There you go. There's the art that David did for the King Black Acid. So it looks really beautiful the way it's been set up and produced. I really like it. And so I guess this is Daniel Riddle, Eric Minot, Jordan Rubach, Hannah Ellison, Brian Owens, and Jonathan Moore, with guest players Frank Huston, Jeff Stewart Saltzman, Dan Vine, and Dan Wynn and Emmy Riddle. So thank you guys for your awesome efforts to make cool music, have beautiful art, and that's pretty sweet. Everyone should go check out Black Magic King Black Acid. Sorry, I keep saying it wrong. King Black Acid. And listen to that and tell us what you think about it.
Did they send you a Shelley Duvall shirt too?
I don't think I got the shirt now.
Oh, okay. I think they sent me the shirt because it inspired it, But I really wanted them to put the Super Beautiful Magic on vinyl because I wanted to see my artwork all big like that, And also, I like that record too. But no, if you open up that CD too, it's pretty classy inside what they did with it. They added to what I had done, and I really appreciate it. Yeah, they're awesome.
That's sweet. Oh, I'm just all me now. Let me check also to see, did Synchronous have anything that he could post? I know he's doing a very important Hollywood meeting right now. Witchcraft Shop finds out that tarot readings are now technically illegal. When complaints about fortune telling is filed by police, investigation could be conducted. Reminds of PKD Minority Report when police exclusively work with precog psychics. That's interesting.
Oh yeah.
On the brink of World War III. Yeah, he did the best.
Did you ever see that thing with the first person on the scene at Sharon Tate's residence besides the police after
no.
They found out where it's a psychic? It was a Hollywood psychic. You can find pictures of him sitting on the couch with her dead body. It's pretty crazy. But you can also find I have found, I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Readily available.
I shouldn't show that picture.
No, you shouldn't. You should not show that picture on here. Don't do it. I didn't mean to do that. Okay.
I almost got there.
Careful. But if you read that guy's description of what he saw in his vision, because they brought in a psychic. This is LA in 1969. Of course the police are going to bring a psychic on the scene and let him walk around and see what vibes he picks up on or whatever. But yeah, he claimed that he had a vision of a party that had happened there recently beforehand, where somebody thought that they were the devil, said that they were Satan or whatever, and that there was Egyptian magic, there was Egyptian mysticism, and something that involved, I believe, a jade dildo was incorporated. It's just these specific things, and it's if you read his report, this is a psychic's report from the thing. It's one of the it's not in Helter Skelter, I don't think, but in the book, but you can find it. It exists out there. It's so freaking weird, man. Sorry.
No, I mean, there's a show about, I don't know if I want to bring it up, but I saw a show recently that had Bella Thorne. Can I just say it like that? And it was all about, it was essentially about the British, punk rock occult scene, but modernized to be about LA. And it was about this group around this musician who's very good, but he was really deeply tied in with the occult. And I think it's very interesting they're bringing it up more and more and showing the reality of that. Here, sorry though, this is something that you would America.
Oh yeah, so another thing that happened this, I in my DMs get accused of this a lot, but for whatever reason, this week in particular, I had a whole bunch of people just hitting me up for being a Freemason Satan worshiper. And
bro, you are so not a Satan worshiper. No offense. I don't know if you're trying. I know you wear cool shirts and all that, but I know a lot of Satan. You're not a lesbian, vegetarian, beach cleanup Satan worshiper. I've seen them. I know what they look like.
I'm not in PETA, which is kind of the same thing.
Ouch.
But this comes up very, very frequently, and this is one of my favorite things that I guess no one really knows about. So I decided to make a comic about this. This has been in the works for over a year, and it finally artwork just wrapped up this week. So it felt like the perfect time to kind of break it all down. So this one's got, I think, 50 unique panels right here. So this is just a handful of them. But this is about
Leo Taxel. Sorry, he was the hoaxer, right, or something.
He was the hoaxer, yeah. And that's not even his real name. That was his hoax pen name.
So Leo Taxel was a guy who went around faking. He's dude, the Freemasons are doing all this stuff they weren't actually doing, making it more confusing when people were trying to find out what the Freemasons were really doing. Because he was no, they were drinking urine. And they're no, they weren't. That's not real.
Well, and he was a parody satirical writer for a bunch of different newsletters. He was kind of a heavy atheist. I would almost put him in the same camp as Illuminati style, where they were trying to just convince people of how silly they were being. So he ends up saying all these scandalous things about the Freemasons, and they're doing sacrifices, and they're doing all these really horrific things.
He's the guy who the introduction of the idea that the Freemasons worship the Templars Baphomet, or something.
That aspect. There's also some footnotes and other books that referenced his work that talked about Albert Pike and Mazzini working together and trying to start World War III. And then there's another quote, because Albert Pike writes about Lucifer in Morals and Dogma, but he doesn't write about worshiping Lucifer. He just talks about how ironic it is that he's cast down, but really he's like the god of light and knowledge and yada yada. But he never actually says anything about worshiping. And there's been a lot of quotes that are attributed to Leo Taxel that talk about Albert Pike worshiping Lucifer. It gets kind of crazy.
But he did, like, he went to the Vatican, and here's your scene of it where he's like, haha, I made it all up with my typewriter. Like,
yeah,
right?
and it was to make them both look like idiots, because he
said
wanted Freemasons to look like idiots, and he wanted the Vatican to look like idiots.
No longer a cause for panic.
Skipping around, but this is another page on the right is like a huge one for me, and I really feel like not a lot of people have dug into this particular angle. But Aldous Huxley's research assistant, DeWitt Bodine, ends up writing for a whole bunch of different Hollywood movies. The Cat People is one of them. Another one is called The Seventh Victim. Yeah.
I love Cat People.
The original Cat People.
Cat People is about
the original Cat People from the 30s or 40s.
Okay, so just a real rabbit hole for Cat People rabbit hole. Can I go 1940s? I should do that so I don't see too many naked pictures. I love them, but the 80s one's so hot. Don't get me wrong. But Cat People is about, and they use a Serbian girl in the new one, right? You can see. But in the old one, it's all about how she's like a Serbo-Slavic American, and so she's cursed with her Serbian curse, which makes her kill men. Basically, they become cats, or she becomes a cat until she kills the men that she's loved, and then she becomes human again, right? But they also invented busing, which is the idea of you're always afraid that there's something about to pounce, but then it turns out to be just a bus passing by. So it was invented in Cat People. Good job, that movie.
And Cat People and The Seventh Victim essentially is where we get the Hollywood version of Satanism to this day. And it comes from DeWitt Bodine, essentially.
Yeah.
And
see, it's funny because marijuana is such a racism against Mexicans, and paganism in America, or occultism in America, is such racism against Slavic people. Because it's just like, if you honestly, when I first got to Croatia as a little boy, I was like, these people are all occultists. I mean, they have priests come in their house, which are these dudes wearing all black, and they swing smoke around, and they're throwing holy water that they blessed in all the corners, all the angles, right? Because that's where the demons lie, right? And it's a way to stop the and they say, oh, the spiders won't form as long, and if there's spiders forming, you got to come to priest in there, have them like, what? You're like, what's happening? And I put a knife in a loaf of bread, and everyone just like crosses themselves, and they start like praying, and someone takes a knife out. They're like, you don't stab the body of Christ, or you don't stab bread.
Is any loaf of bread the body of Christ?
It could be. I think it's a metaphor to them. Yeah, I think it can, because you're always supposed to be praying over your food. So it's potentially, as soon as you do that prayer over it, if you do it properly. Although transubstantiation,
I didn't think you could transubstantiate your own food. Don't you?
If you're if you're a priest, and so the other thing is Croatians, like we were all like priests, essentially. Like, first, they're Diocletian pagans that were doing transubstantiation rituals long before the Christians got involved with that. So that's the other thing. When the Christians show up, you have Arianists and you have the Catholics, and they're adapting an already existing culture. Like, no, yeah, the thing you're talking about, only we can do that, right? And it also adapts that it has to be the archonic ritual. You
don't have to transubstantiate like before the dough rises. Is there like an interim, or no? It's just any time. Okay.
No, in fact, like I'll tell the story more another time. But like I remember when I was in Spain, and some people seen the video, I went to see Franco's tomb, and like it was like super dark in the tomb, and they have candles, right? And it's not for anyone to go to, but like I looked like everybody else because I was dressed like everybody else. So I was like with these seminary priest kids, and they blow out the candles, and then they perform the Eucharist ritual, and they're doing something far more serious than what the average modern post-Vatican II Catholic is doing. I don't think the post-Vatican II Catholic even wants to do transubstantiation. But I mean, if I had
that's the whole thing. That's the climax of the whole ceremony.
If I'd had blood and flesh instead of wine and bread, I wouldn't have known the difference. I'll tell you what, like it was weird. It was a weird moment, and it was definitely not like anything else I'd gone through. And yeah, it was in pitch black darkness and everything. I'm sure there's enough weirdness just in the ambiance and the atmosphere.
Did they have like a bowl of peeled grapes, and they were like, "These are the eyes of Jesus."
Well said.
Some noodles. Oh God, no.
RKO is big with Disney.
Intestines.
So,
Yeah.
so the story, to summarize it pretty briefly, is that Bodine wants to get the best research he can for the movie The Seventh Victim. So he gets hooked up with an actual clan of Satanists that live in the West Side, and like a nice like upper class group of people. And if you watch The Seventh Victim, that is exactly what that movie's about. It's about this lady that goes to try and find her sister that disappeared, and when she goes to the building that her sister used to be in, it's like these high affluent, high society people, but they also happen to be Satanists.
The Seventh Victim. What happened to The Seventh Victim? Can we watch that movie? Yeah.
Yeah, we can watch it, I think.
All right, let's do it. We gotta start doing streaming, like Mystery Science Theater, Esoteric Science Theater in the Discord.
And I just had so the pamphlet is actually called The History of the Satanic Panic. So I couldn't do this without a couple panels to Michael Aquino.
I know. I was just thinking that. Yeah. Look at his cute eyebrows, right? Like he invented Spock. I think is the deal. Is what that looks like.
I thought Spock was actually, admittedly, but when they came up with Spock's look for how they were going to dress up Leonard Nimoy in his face, they said LaVey. They said a LaVey-like thing. Oh, you know this, yeah.
Yeah,
for
sure. It's in the screenplay. But I mean, Temple is set. Zepper. I always think of whenever I see Michael Aquino, my first thought is Zeper. Zepper. I don't know. It's like it's kind of interesting to create your own word. Yeah, I can relate. This I find interesting. But yeah, it's weird when if you meet, like I met so many Satanists in the army. After I found out about Aquino, I was like, weird. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I'm kind of a Buddhist. And then you like talk to them for like 5 minutes. Like, oh, you're cool. Here's what I really do. I find that interesting.
Yeah, in boot camp, it was wild. They had a Wiccan service.
I believe it. Yeah, see, that seems even more like approachable. Because if you say Satanism, no. If you take Temple of Set, maybe. But you say Wiccan, you're like, oh, I have Wikipedia. I'm all right with that. That's normalized,
So when we talk about like the real Satanic Panic, that was the 80s, right? That was like the mid 80s.
No, well, I mean, what this is.
I mean, not that it didn't continue, but I mean, where it started. Like
this is making a case that it actually started way earlier than that, and that Bodine is sort of this intricate link between both of those. Like the last wizard that was on trial in America was, I think, in like the very late 1700s, and on the other side of the country, on the West Coast, if you had enough money, then you were allowed to be a warlock and you were allowed to have all these, grimoires and stuff. But if you were on the East Coast, and poor, then you were like a bad person.
That's true. And also,
the Satanic Panic goes back to fucking, Salem. But you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like,
but there
the
was
television age of the real.
There's several.
Thomas Edison's first movie was Mephisto and Marguerite.
Yeah. And the Swedes have their own problem in the 40s that starts to emerge because they have occult groups, right? You start to see how in the 20th century through Scientology and Thelema and everything, they start to try to adapt to become not satanic looking, except for the Church of Anton LaVey, which is like, we're going to be like the Christians, except we're aesthetically going to look evil. So it'll even be more like useful. But there are like different periods in it. So Ohio in the 18th century is the first United States Ave Satana. It's the first satanic church that's legal in the United States that I know of. I'm sure that there are covens that are more esoteric, but here's a building with its logo and you can go to it, in the Ave Satana groups. So starts, you do have, your Salem period too, but that's also, it seems to be pretty racist because you have blacks coming through.
Well, and those are the Puritans. Like nobody liked the Puritans. They were the worst people to ever be around.
But the Puritans didn't like, so if you look, we were talking yesterday about the Eucharist, and the Veda has rice cakes that are to represent animal sacrifices, right? And there's a way that these Caribbean witches created rice cakes, which are associated with Crowley's cake of light, which is the witch cake essentially. So there's
the Eucharist of the Black Mass.
Yeah, so these things are they are connected, and the Puritans were saying like, hey, this is something that we're familiar with because at the time in the 1600s there were people that were performing archonic rituals in England and Scotland. So they weren't like the thing is the Puritans saw that stuff, knew what was going on, and they were the odd men out. because they weren't, you know, in the hierarchy of politic at that point. It's been about 100 years of this other group running England, and they'd kind of also been converted by the Catholics, so they were continuing on what they first had believed, which had to do with like archonic ritual. So, but then you've got in the 20th century, you have new occult groups in New York and in Louisiana, in New Orleans, and in Minneapolis, and in like there's Rochester and New York City. Though you have out of like certain kinds of Freemason groups, because the Hellfire Society, you've next generationing. So next generationing happens, and they create these study groups which are studying tarot, divination, you know, and then so these Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn groups. So there's like Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn in North Carolina, in South Carolina. These are branches that came from New York, because New York had some sort of a, you know, in the 40s and 30s and 40s, there were people that were kind of freaking out about it. And you can see it because in the 20s and the 30s, there's all of these movies like Satanas and everything like that. They made a lot of movies that were like, dude, careful, there's witches in your town. There are these elite that are practicing this.
Wasn't Israel Regardie in LA? Wasn't he like a LA massage therapist?
What was
tripping? Israel Regardie? Wasn't he like from LA? I thought, and or am I getting mixed up? And I'm thinking of Manly P. Hall being in LA. I don't know. It's just.
Well, remind me who Israel Regardie. He was Crowley's yogi, or what did he do? What was his thing?
No, he's Golden Dawn, and so they had a falling out when you know, and Crowley left the Golden Dawn, and so yeah, he's the guy. But yeah, he was extremely prolific. But I thought that he was actually like I might be getting mixed up, but I thought he was like a massage therapist.
Yeah, Chiropractic College in New York.
Chiropractic. Okay, there we go. Yeah,
he's a chiropractor.
Well, yeah, that's probably a good way to learn about bones and joints and everything if you're interested in like, you know, the parts of the human body from like a holistic and less Western perspective. Yeah, but he was born in London, I guess it says.
Yeah, but then I think he came to the.
So, but like, he was kind of against. What did he think about the Crowley approach, or was he like, you have to focus on angels? You know,
it's actually pretty funny, and in fact, I would say that this could be something that's almost worthy of Thomas's like comic treatment, because the back and forth bickering between Crowley and Regardie, it becomes kind of comical, because they're just like they were on a track, and then Crowley is like, you know, wanted to go. He's so ambitious in certain ways, you know, in terms of the society. He wanted to belong to everything, you know. Where I think Israel Regardie was more like focused in on like he was content, and he wasn't coming from the same place of like of desire for achievement within the order. He was just kind of like doing his thing, right? And like, yeah, I don't know.
I was working on a book for a little while, but it wasn't hitting the right notes. It was called Wizard War, and originally it was about Crowley and I think is the name Rudolf Hess, where they had like this like magical battle across like Axis versus Allies. But like that, and it was going to be phrased so like each page was a different video game aesthetic. So like one page would be Pokemon style with like the dialogue and the artwork, and then the next page would be like Mortal Kombat style and stuff.
No, our current project I'm really excited about. I think
we can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, elaborate.
Freaking hilarious.
Well,
dude.
So the original concept, which it's no longer this, but the original concept was, let's make a pamphlet on just Kubrick and all of like the crazy like insider occult nods to, you know, like profane information that the Kubrick was hiding. But then David threw me down some rabbit hole of like a book from the 1800s, and now it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
What's this book from the 1800s, David?
It's the Golden Bough. So like, even I was just like dipping my toe in it yesterday in our conversation. I don't know.
And when you say book, you mean like 13 books.
Yeah. So like, it was the premise. You've heard this before, but is this okay, Thomas?
Yeah.
Can I just like tell what other thing we're doing? I don't think anyone's going to take it from us.
This is also a great way to patent it real quick.
I am almost positive no one's going to make a Golden Bough comic in the next 2 months, but if they do, more the merrier.
Well, after that, you're like, wow, that's good.
Dude, it's like 3 Steve Jobs movies come out at once with Golden Bough in them. I just
whatever. Okay. I mean, if we can plant the seed and more people are talking about Golden Bough, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm literally gonna spill the beans if you don't mind.
Awesome.
I don't care.
I'm excited about it. I think it's so good. So basically, I got a hit. So we had our conception around it or whatever. I had my conception around it, and then Thomas kind of like came up with like, how is this a comic? Like I was like, here's a premise, but so how this is a comic, I'm literally going to give the outline. I can't give it all because it's complex, but just with brevity. So basically, you know, Kubrick gets received. We could do it a couple different ways. It could be in an office. It could be he receives a package. So we need to discuss this further. We've been meaning to talk. So, but the idea I'm kind of coming with, and I'm open to other possibilities.
I think we've seen him. Like I like the comical approach of like him actually holding like 13 books and then just dropping them in front of a busy exec that's like on the phone and he's got papers and Kubrick's just like, read this now.
That's a total possibility and I'm down. But the way I'm visualizing, I'll just let you know, because this is a conversation we're going to have in private, whatever, screw it. We got 10 minutes here to discuss. So I'm just going to say like the way that it's described in the Vanity Fair article is that he basically receives this in the mail. Mm-hmm. So he's like, Kubrick sent him an unabridged set of The Golden Bough. So it's like, he's like, looks at a package, says, you know, from Kubrick, whatever. He opens it up. It's this enormous set of books. They're like hardback books. And he's like, what the hell? And then you have cut to panels of phone calls of Kubrick proceeds to bother him every week for a year about, are you reading this book that I sent you? This not just this book is like crazy, right? And so it's just like, are you getting it? You getting it? You getting it? And eventually he's just like, look, like I got a studio to run. This is the head of Warner Brothers in the 70s. So he's like, look, I got a studio to run. I don't have time for mythology. To which Kubrick responds with, this isn't mythology, this is your life. That part could be in person, who the hell knows, whatever. It could all be in person, I don't know. But the point is that this is your life, comic form, that's the ... We go from there.
If you look up the very first Chick Track book, it's This Was Your Life, which was complete coincidental, but now that has to be the cover of this one because the synchronicity is just amazing.
Do you know my new definition of hell is? Hell is like right as you die, seeing like who you could have been. Keep going.
Yeah, no, that's good. So that's like, okay, this is your life. Okay, so from there, this comic sandwiches this, where it's like it explains how this is your life, and so we go through in comic form in a depiction explanation of what is the ritual of the Golden Bough. And long story short, you know, ritualistic killing of the king, everything involved, the pulling the limb from the sacred tree at the Lake of Nemi, challenging the king by pulling that limb. King gets killed, and he either kills himself or he gets murdered by this challenger who's a complete outsider, who has to be like basically a certain qualifications. He has to be like an escaped criminal from a completely different land, right? So this is Alf, by the way. It's Aleph, because that's the fool. So he's the archetype of the fool.
He's form.
Yeah, he's the green man, right? And so that's, by the way, that is just listeners, that is Alf. Alf is an alien. He is fulfilling the role of the outsider that would challenge the king and would challenge the system, not just the king. But the joke of Alf is that they have to hide him in the garage, because if they find him, they'll kill him. So he's going to be threatened. So that actually relates to where we're going with this, because ultimately that could even be included. We could even show that to describe it.
Well, it's like he's also the enemy of the cat people.
Right. So whoa. Interesting. What are you saying, Andres? You're silent.
He was a crack addict. Keep going.
that was the father.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, Project Alf and all that. But anyway, the point of Alf is that he is a true outsider, because this qualification had to be that he's an outsider to the kingdom. But what happens when we've charted the whole planet? In order for that challenger to be a true outsider, he has to be a literal alien. And
sorry, so for anyone who doesn't know, we're talking about Alf. This is Alf, right?
Right. Yeah. So and Alf is the fool. So this is the spelling out of the Hebrew letter Aleph. That is Alf. Yeah. And Aleph. So right. And so and Aleph corresponds to the Fool card in the Arcana, the Trump Arcana in Tarot. And so he would challenge the system, but he has to be hidden away in this case because of where we're actually at, which is what this relates to in the comic. So we show this history and explanation of the anthropology around the Golden Bough, which is also in part related to Christianity. Jesus is a scapegoat, except he's the innocent scapegoat, whereas traditionally the scapegoat is actually guilty. you know, where you and this was a way to ensure the longevity of the kingdom. So you ritualistically kill the king, and then the one who challenges him, who's a complete outsider, he replaces the king and marries the king's daughter. This is relating to the exogamic age, where everything actually centers around the king's daughter rather than the king.
I need this videotape. This
Wow,
looks
that's amazing.
like a Bible of power.
Yeah. And wow, I never seen that.
It just saw like angels that start showing up. It's just like
I know. I'm looking around. I'm seeing light orbs. Keep going. Sorry.
And so it goes all the way into it jumped forward into the future in this explanation in the comic, where you're looking at Bohemian Grove and the cremation of care ceremony, and kind of a showing of how the cremation of care is a reversal of this tradition of killing the king, or the king sacrificing himself. It's now that they're celebrating sacrificing the one who would challenge the king, and celebrating another year in power with Midsommar sets us free, you know. And so you have this whole crazy explanation of the Golden Bough ritual when he said, and then so it started with, this is a mythology, this is your life, and then it kind of like ties back then to this executive just like not getting the context, and he's just kind of like sloughs it off. He's like, whatever. Like Kubrick being crazy Kubrick, right? It's like, and so that like it wasn't until Thomas explained that I got that sense of like, this is a comic, like this has that potential, because that tying it all back, like it's like this long-winded trip out explanation of like how this is your life. Like this isn't just a figure of speech. Like when Kubrick's saying that, he means it. You know, and so yeah,
it's so complicated. Everything and it also includes the formula of tetragrammaton. Like there's so many overly complicated things, but once you put it in visual form, especially in these little comics, man, it's so perfect. What always astounds me is how well people understand the general premise with just like the simplest little panels, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you can read, these 13, you can read 7,000 pages, or you can read 30 pages and at least get like a Cliff Notes, like sort of introduction to it.
It took me a while before I can get Alf at Bohemian Grove, but we're going to get there. This is what we got so far. Aliens are making their way in, so pretty soon.
This is like the alien from American Dad.
We're going to need some work. We need to actually train it on Alf models, I think is the problem. But
cat sacrifice, cat effigy.
Yeah.
Is it an effigy or is it a real cat? I don't know. Ask Alex Jones. What does he think? I don't know. It could be a fake cat. It could be a real cat. I'm not really sure.
But like, so this like 13 book series, The Golden Bough. So what are you saying? It's about like how would you describe it? Like it's the work of the soul. Like, cause he said, this is his life, like why is the Golden Bough?
This is your life. He's saying like, this is what we're existing within. The framework described in the Golden Bough, we can't escape it, because the ritual of the Golden Bough is to align ourselves with nature, where we recognize that we're imitating nature. So the best that you could do is find that alignment. But what we're doing now is we're working against that trimming back of the tree. We won't allow the tree to get pruned. And so no one wants to be the sacrifice. None of the rulers want to submit to that. So they're just like, oh, we can get another year in. We can get another year in. So it's just greed. And
it's kind of anthropologically, like it's showing like how people worship different gods, like the Adonai and Osiris, the rise of Osiris, the rise of Attis, right, and things like that.
Well, yeah, and this also actually technically relates to the Jubilee. So in the
forgiveness of debt,
the forgiving of debt and the releasing of servants, because one of the functions of having this challenger become king and marry the king's daughter is the last become first. Because where he's coming from, he sees no reason to not just like turn the whole thing over. He's like, screw it. So that's part of it. Yeah.
And there's a King Kill 33 connection in there too.
Yeah. Oh, big
yeah.
time.
What's the King? Oh, what's the King
Kill 33 ritual is essentially you take out the king and you inherit that power, and especially as an outsider. So I mean, in my twisted mind, that's Sidney Gottlieb. Sidney Gottlieb of MK Ultra is essentially pulling the strings, but you can fill in whoever you want.
Well, it's too bad that they didn't have ChatGPT back then, because if you just use Bard, you'd be like, break down the Golden Bough. You can break down chapter by chapter, which is pretty sweet. What I would recommend is like, because it made me think about this book that Ed Annunziata, the Echo the Dolphin creator, gave me, Galeo's Error, which I think is like my favorite new book, and it's all about Galileo trying to disregard ether and spirit because he's like, well, we can't measure it.
We can't ignore the Winnie the Pooh outfit in the cart right now.
I have some ideas for Halloween. Back off. No, I'm gonna be a missionary, I think. But integrated information theory is the IIT proposes a mathematical model for consciousness of a system. And I think this is the thing that we really need to like understand and study. I'm gonna try to do some episodes just with Ed on this. But if you guys have time through your study of the Golden Bough, check out Galileo's error also, because it's all about the history of why we kind of disregarded spirit, what we're trying to do now to why we think we need to include the study of spirit and of consciousness and of ether, the errors of the Michelson-Morley experiment, which like why in physics we disregard dark matter and ether, and the issues with physics because of that, which have made openings for quantum physicists because they can actually just disregard those false presuppositions in physics. So Galileo's error is like, how are we going to like start measuring this stuff? And a big part of it is integrated information theory. That idea that there might be a whole universe, there might be, intuitively there might be other parts, and this idea that consciousness seems to be happening, and it might not just be a reaction. It might be that the material realm is the reaction. I mean, we don't know. We need to actually study it before we just make the presupposition that that consciousness is a reactive quality.
Can I respond to one of these comments where someone says, ALF was when I first understood advertising versus quality. That show sucked. And so
clearly someone didn't read their midrash. No,
but this is the thing though. And it's a valid take if you just looking at it aesthetically or whatever. Like, I get it. The thing is like, I don't know if you've ever seen like Barton Fink, the end of Barton Fink, when he's like in this position where he's like, I got to write this crap. Now I'm like, he's got a mind, he's got something to offer to the world, but now he's stuck in this position where he has to write some crap. And I think that there's cases, like more than most people would probably suspect, where when you're looking at crap TV, crap movies, like things that are out there where you're just like, oh, that's just this. There's real people that are behind a lot of those things. And some of them are really compromised positions. And sometimes you have like, it's like what people would argue. I think it's what Joseph Atwell kind of argues about Josephus Flavius. If he's working for the Romans and he's written Antiquity of the Jews and War of the Jews, and the idea that he may have been part of a panel or even just himself, who knows what the hell, if you're like, this person's in a compromised position where it's like they want to get something out. They have to write something that they're being basically commissioned to write, but they're going to like, there's subversion within the midst of that where they're going to communicate something. Kubrick, right? Yeah, totally. Where you're going to communicate something of depth in the midst of that.
Alf Kubrick. It's like the same.
And you got to remember, like in what's the one with like the serial killer one? With the killers, natural born killers. In Natural Born Killers, they have a scene where they have a sitcom. Like aesthetic for a moment, like her childhood and her youth. She's like, how do I remember my youth? Well, you remember your youth through the aesthetic of the time. And so if you grew up in that time, you might remember like vaguely your youth and implant it into a more solid thing, which is the structuring, the contemplation of a sitcom. The sitcom is the metric and the 3D space that you can actually exist in because you grew up in it. And also at the time there was just so many different shows like Magnum PI and Quantum Leap and all these things. So I'm sure that made it harder to enjoy ALF if you had so much going on and your life was young and people loved you. But I loved ALF. I mean, I didn't see it when it came out though, so I wasn't there at the time. I remember I was in Croatia in 2001 or 3, and it was on in the summertime because they had like syndication. It's like, what is this show? Because it's so freaking weird. Yeah. But if you had Punky Brewster, and you might have been like, wow, Punky Brewster is like a superior show to that show. But then if you had something before, like if you had, I don't know, Andy, what's that cop show? The Andy show, Andy Williams show, Andy Griffith show. You might have thought, wow,
that cop show because you Don Knotts. That's how you call. Oh, I guess he
all
was
I think
too.
of,
he was a sheriff or whatever. Okay, I'll shut up.
He was.
No, I mean, weirdly enough, a goal of mine was to be Andy Griffith. Like, if I could time travel back in time and run a small town.
But to me, Alf was like, out of those three, right? Like the Andy Griffith show, I think was almost satirical with how like perfect everything was. It was very like self-aware when it got to that.
Right.
And then Punky Brewster always, I mean, it was made for children, so it always had this weird, like,
it's not allowed
learning
anymore.
lesson.
Kids cannot watch that anymore because now it's about an
they-
independent-minded young lady with freedom.
Dude, they screwed it up. They screwed up Punky Brewster. They can't have new Punky Brewster shows with her. The actress grown up, and I'm like, you guys missed an opportunity, big time. Because what they should have done, excuse me, I don't know. I know we're short on time. We were past time.
Yeah, I'm excited.
But dude,
I want to know.
She
I love
lived in the
Punky
treehouse, right? She lived in the treehouse, and she was taken in by this older man, right? He took care of her, right? And so, like, I'm just like, dude, it should have been that she is still Punky Brewster, like Punky Brewster attitude, like she was then, like, her personality, she's adult, but like her personality is like that old Punky Brewster personality. Like she is that character, but she's dealing with like new issues, like things that are coming up now in culture war shit.
Like
and it should have just been like she's being confronted with it, but she's like, but yeah, totally. But it's like she's from the 80s. She's like she's still in the 80s,
the late 70s.
So all these older people that grew up with Punky Brewster in the 80s, now they can see Punky Brewster being confronted with these current social issues, but like being like an adult Punky Brewster, like her shoes are untied and she's doing the thing, you know, like I don't, I'm sorry, but you remember, it's just so sad because like, remember what happened with Punky Brewster, right? Because she had ganglomastia. She got like boobs that were the size of Volkswagens, and it was just like the entire media took this child star and like just destroyed her. Like I think it really, so she ended up doing breast reduction surgery, and she's like had a lot of personal like cosmetic because of the way as a child it was all about pleasing the aesthetics of these people who don't know her or just care about through a magazine. This is before social media. So I think, she worked really hard to adapt to be a normal person, whatever that meant to her instead. And so that is unfortunately the opposite of what the Punky Brewster whatever the networks thought would sell or whatever. I'm like, it was a failed opportunity from the networks because they could have made that would have been a better product. Like they could have made a good show that would have been a hit. Like that would have been something. But instead, it's just another generic fucking Friends. Or
that's
whatever.
The problem is no one wants to go weird. Like what we need to do is do a show about like that girl who like got in a car accident and then she like went insane and then she started working with the environmental rights people and they put her in the redwood tree and then she wouldn't come down. And they're like, come down, stay there for 3 years and name the tree Luna. Where's that sitcom? You know what I mean?
I mean, the point to make with the little bow on top is that was ALF, bro. Like ALF when it first came out. If you look back on it now, it seems so tame and cheesy. But when it came out, like that was the guy. That was the first Simpsons, in my opinion. It was they were eating cats.
Midwest Christians watched it.
They were smoking crack. They had like a homeless guy that lived in their shack. They were like
tried to do their daughter
radio to communicate. Like that was all wild, bro. And it was cooler than Mork and Mindy because Mork and Mindy was like kind of for your parents a little bit.
Well, they shut down Mork and Mindy. First season's amazing. Last season's amazing. But the middle episodes, they're like, let's just like they took it away from Robin Williams. They put FCC in charge. They got people who could speak Yiddish because he started just saying things on the show, and they're like, we don't know what he's saying. So they really like that was like early censorship. But I just want to say with ALF, that's cool the way they ended it because everyone hates when they don't have resolution, and I feel like that's you deserve that for not liking ALF, and like not having resolutions also like leaving you wanting more. So it's the Star Wars Episode 5 Empire Strikes Back of a series where there's like the Roswell CIA are coming to kill this family because they don't want anyone to know what they saw, and they're leaving it really hardcore. So I mean, I think it's always left up to the eye of the beholder. That's the biggest issue.
Are you kind of talking about Project ALF? You're talking about the movie, the ALF movie?
I'm talking about the last episode of ALF.
Oh, like, have you seen the last? I thought the last thing was the movie Project ALF.
Is that what we're talking about? Let me see what's going on here.
I think so. I think you're probably just relating to the movie as though it was the last episode
that I blocked out of my mind.
Yeah,
Project ALF, made for TV science fiction film directed by Dick Lowry. Serves as the sequel to the final episode, Consider Me Gone. Wow.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
So I think I saw this and thought it was an episode, maybe.
Probably. Yeah. I had that until recently. Yeah. I was like, wow, that last episode was really long.
Broadcast the day before my birthday in 1996. All right. I'll have to revisit this. Guys, we're deep into this. Oh, I wanted to say I'm going to do a talk with Ian Crossland on graphene. We did some talks on God and Abrahamic faith. So good job, Ian. You're stepping it up. But MK Ultrasound, David Plate, He's been doing amazing synchronicity work. If you want to check out, also, let me just go to the videos page first, so you can see he's got his synchronicities right here, all set up on his the syncbook.com website, which you can get right from his Twitter. So follow him on Twitter, and you can see also the movies he's uploading directly onto Twitter. He's got all kinds of synchronicity work, and I think you did some documentary stuff recently, right? You're editing stuff.
Yeah, I did. I did kind of a. If you scroll down, there's like a what would be considered very controversial a couple years ago isn't so controversial now. But I have like a 3-hour like expose on like COVID hysteria and medical tyranny. But this isn't it. This is just 60 minutes. But yeah, this is, you know, yeah, no, if you actually go to my highlights on my Twitter now, it's just my sync films.
Oh, there's highlights.
Yeah. So I've made it a point so to simplify it for people, because, you know, if you want to find them here, that's how you do it. Yeah.
King of Cups paired with the Doors. Am I gonna get in trouble if I look through this video? I'm really scared all the time now.
You might. I don't think so.
You might.
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. All right, yeah. So everyone, go to David Charles Plate, watch his sync films, and also check out his documentary work. I'm sorry, Cassandra, I misunderstood. Everything predicts 9/11. When you're ready, because that's the best, most important thing you can do. And oh, I just love some of this anime art. This is the one I did recently. A man from Arkansas who entered some kind of contest and won a 2-week vacation, all expenses paid, wherever he wanted to go, any place in the world, Mongolia, Easter Island, the Turkish Riviera. But his choice was Salt Lake City. And that's where he went. Is this man a registered voter? Has he come to grips with the issue? Has he bathed in the blood of the lamb? Hunter S. Thompson. So yeah, I like that. But yeah, you can also follow me on Twitter as well. Let me just go and Andreas Exert Us on Twitter, and then make sure you follow Paranoid American, Paranoid America on Twitter, and ParanoidAmerican.com. Paranoid America has
back to Frazzledrip Funhouse comic, which is going to be running until like November 18th, I think.
Yeah, so through ParanoidAmerican.com, you can click on the top Frazzledrip, or you can just go to Frazzledrip.com, where you can jump in here. It's a $666 perfect flexible goal, and they've got 242 so far. Basically, you can jump in and grab yourself a printed comic for $13, and it's worth it. And I'd say
there's some early birds available too.
Where's these early birds at? What I do?
It's on the left or on the right side if you keep going down. There you go.
Oh, there's all this. There you go. Yeah, so you can get the early bird combo pack, which has all the sticker things. Remember, these are the sweetest. This is the sweetest swag, because once you've got the comic book, you're gonna want to put stickers everywhere to remind yourself. You know, you put on your walls, you put them on your skateboards, put them on your kids' mouths in the back seat of the car when they talk too loudly, ask too many questions. So, you know, make sure you get yourself the.
And this one's got the McDrenachrome sticker. It's got a whole bunch of new ones that haven't even been posted on the site individually yet. It's got a little homunculus Budweiser style sticker on there.
Wow. So these are unique. And also, you know, the classics. So like the Bohemian Grove kids birthday party, which is kind of one of my favorite. I love the aesthetic of that. It's just super cool. Super great. So yeah, Frazzledrip Funhouse, everybody. Make sure you get on here. You know, also what you could do if you're super cool, click on that little birdie. Share it on your thing right here. Help make it happen. First, look what I just did. See that? How cool am I? All right. And how cool is that? Look at that. That's crazy. Okay.
What a world we live in.
What a world we live in. Go to targetnova.com. Follow us, like us, subscribe, like this video, share this video. Go to the Matrix in the Discord. Join the community. Talk to us. What else? Oh yeah, send us money, please. We could use your money.
And drugs.
The money. I prefer the money. I like this whole thing. My blood is more pure than the purest drugs. All right, peace.
Hello. Welcome to the Exert Us.
Synctank.